An entitled Karen demands that I add her order to another customer's bill simply because the other customer is her ex-boyfriend, as she claims he should be responsible for everything in her life. But when I say no, this lady goes into an absolute spiral, freaking out on me in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so this happened about 6 years ago, back in 2019. So I was a 21-year-old at the time, and when I was still living in New Jersey, I just finished college and I was working as a shift manager at a fast food restaurant, which of course I'm not gonna name, while also doing my tattoo apprenticeship. One day, one of the cashiers, who I will call Jane, came up to me and asked for help as there was a situation in the counter that she didn't really know how to deal with. At the counter was this man, his son, and behind him was this woman with 2 younger kids. The man then explained that he's the father of his 10-year-old son, and the woman behind him is his ex, who is the mother of his son, but he is not the father of her 2 other kids. He had custody of his sons today, so he was taking him out for lunch and to try and visit a museum, but the baby mama and her 2 other kids, as he called her, just so happened to also show up at the restaurant at the same time that he pulled up. She was demanding that he also treat her other 2 kids for lunch and take them to the museum as well, but the man said he is responsible for his son and only his son. His ex then tried to interject, saying that she didn't want her kids to be left out while the oldest kid, the son, got special treatment, and that their dad's not in the picture. That being said, she wanted the man to pay for the lunches of her 2 other kids as well. I told Jane that I'll take it from here, and the man told me that he'll order 2 combos for himself and his son. And as I was taking the order, this woman literally then tried shouting the order of her 2 other kids. At this point, the man and his ex then started arguing again, and then the man turned to me, adamantly stating he will only pay for his order and that of his son. Plus, on top of that, he will be paying in cash. But this woman then started shouting at me that I need to add her order to his as well. But I just told this woman that she will need to wait her turn. I mean, the man paid for his order and waited. The woman then came up to me, gave me her order, plus that of her kids, but when I told her the price of her 5 combos for herself and her 2 kids, she then asked if her ex had already paid for all of it. I told her that his order was only for himself and his son, and that her order was separate from his. And it's also like I only took her order after the man paid, so yeah, we're not going back on that. This woman then started screaming at me and how hard it is for her to be a single mom. She says she doesn't have the money to pay, and then she began pointing at her ex again, saying that he should have to pay for her order because he's single, has a full-time job, and lives by himself. Well, the man then spoke up and started shouting, reiterating that her other 2 kids are not his responsibility. Now, at this point, I told the woman that I sympathize with her, and I genuinely do, but unfortunately, I can't just add her order to that of another customer who already paid, not to mention the fact that he very specifically said he would only pay for his order. I then asked her if she's still paying for her order or if I need to cancel it, and it's here that she literally tried to grab the credit card her ex had, but he pushed her off of him. And then after that, she left the store, telling the man to take her other 2 kids with him to the museum. And yeah, you heard that right. She legit just left her kids with him. Now, at this point, I did not know what else to do, but the man then told me that he'd also like to buy some fries and chili for her 2 other kids, and then he just told me that he'd drop these kids off at his ex's place himself. I then told him not to bother paying for the extra fries as it was on the house, and I'll just add extra fries to the existing order, because from the sounds of it, this guy definitely had a very rough day. Okay, I kind of see why that guy broke up with that lady, because holy crap, that's an entirely different level of crazy in my opinion. Who in their right mind would be like, oh yeah, you're gonna pay for everything that I've got because you're single and you have a full-time job? It's like, dude, no, I'm not gonna pay for anything for you, and I'm only gonna take care of my son. Like, what's going on right now? This lady literally has kids with another man, and she's trying to be like, these are your responsibility too. And it's like, dude, no, it's not. That is absolutely not how it's gonna work. And I love the fact that she literally tried to get on the original poster and be like, oh, come on, you're supposed to help me out. And it's like, dude, I just work here. I'm not interested in some weird pseudo custody battle, dude. Like, get a grip. But I think overall, I'm like super blown away that that guy willingly said, okay, I'll just drop these kids off and I'll buy him some extra food or something. Because if that was me, dude, I would literally report her or something. You can't just drop your kids off with someone who is not their father and be like, it's your responsibility now. Take them to the museum for all I care. I'm out of here. Like, seriously, that's some bad behavior, man. You're not a good mom if you do that. So yeah, I think the original poster handled this perfectly. And I can only imagine how funny that must have been later on thinking about it and like talking about it with coworkers. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend went on a girls' trip out to a cabin, only to then return a completely different person, as she went from a bubbly, joyful person all the way down to this reserved and very quiet individual who looked like she was trying to hide some kind of secret. But after doing some digging and trying to figure out what happened on this trip, it was eventually revealed that my girlfriend had straight up cheated on me while she was on vacation. And now I've decided to break up with her and move on with my life, even though this is the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with. Here's how it all went down. I'm a 25-year-old male and I've been with my girlfriend for a couple of years now. We've been living together for a few months and things have been mostly really good. Like, yeah, little arguments here and there, but nothing major. Well, last weekend she went on a trip with her college friends over to this lake house or cabin that one of their families owns. It was something that was just for the girls, kind of like a last summer thing before a couple of them move out of state. And you know what? I was totally fine with it. I told her to go and have fun because I literally had no issue there. But when she got back, something felt off immediately. Like she walked in and just barely looked at me. She gave me a quick hug and then went straight to the bedroom to unpack. She didn't even say that she missed me or anything like that. We usually text a bunch when we're apart, but she was kind of distant the entire trip too. Like she was giving shorter responses and slower replies. Ever since she's been back, she has been weirdly quiet. Not mad or anything like that, but just really distant. She's been zoning out, not really laughing at stuff like she usually does, and just kind of flat when we talk. I asked her how the trip was, and she literally said, "Oh, it was all right," and then would change the topic really fast. There were no stories, no funny moments, no pictures, no nothing, which really is super unlike her. She normally comes back from an outing with like 10 stories and a ton of photos. The other thing is that she's been journaling a lot since she came back, which again, it's not bad, it's just something new. She's always kind of been into mindfulness and stuff like that. I then asked her if everything was okay, and she just said that she's tired and processing a lot at the moment, which is kind of like, okay, whatever that means, I guess. I tried pressing gently, and she told me I was being overly clingy, and that she just needs a bit of space. Now, I've never been called clingy before, so that really stung for me. I've tried asking her friends if something happened, but they kind of just brush it off and tell me not to worry. So now I'm just sitting here like, okay, what happened on that trip that made her come back a totally different person? She's not mad at me, I think, but it honestly feels like she left as one version of herself and came back as an entirely different person, and she simply won't let me in at all. I'm trying not to make a big deal out of it, but I feel like I'm being iced out and I have no clue why. What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update they'd like to share, and honestly, things get kind of weird. Here's what's going on. Okay, so first off, I want to thank everyone who commented or messaged me, because every little bit helps me when it comes to talking about this. I read everything, even if I couldn't reply back to everyone, and while some of it did help, other parts of it really made me feel worse. Okay, so here's the update. It wasn't really a planned discussion or anything like that, but it just kind of happened out of nowhere. Now, I had earlier asked one of her friends if something was going on, and she again just didn't really open up, but told me it wouldn't be her place or job to say if something did or didn't. Now, I thought I wouldn't really get anything out of her, so I just kind of said screw it, and I would just try and talk to my girlfriend later on. Well, she then came home from work and was just acting off again. You know, the usual I've been dealing with ever since this trip. She barely said anything, didn't really eat the dinner I had prepared for her earlier, almost immediately went for a long walk outside, and afterwards went straight to the shower and spent a long time there. Later, she kind of just stayed in our bedroom laying about and not really engaging with me at all. I haven't seen her writing in her journal at all today, and honestly, I don't think much of it. I then went in after a while just to ask her about her day gently, and no, I wasn't pressing her or bothering her about it. Just calmly asked if she could please just talk to me, and that I care about her and how she feels. I told her I wasn't trying to fight or blame anything on her. I just wanted to understand what's going on, and since we always share everything, it's unfair to keep me in the dark like this, and that I'd support her either way, whatever it is. Now, she didn't say much. She kept mumbling about not knowing what to say, wasn't really feeling it as she was tired, etc. So I stepped back, I spent some time on my own, and I decided to go for a walk. But eventually, later today, she started opening up a little. I guess she had enough time to reflect and gather her thoughts. I'm not going to try and put every single word she said here in quotations, because it kind of feels personal, but also, I'm still trying to process it myself. But basically, yeah, something did happen on the trip, and something happened with her and the girls. She didn't say word for word what she did in detail, but she made it really clear that it went way past what would be okay in a relationship. And from the sounds of it, it's like way past what would be okay. There was plans of drinking during the trip, and I know my girl drinks and I do too, but it's never been a problem. I was expecting it, and I think it's normal, and I encourage her always to have fun if she wants to, since, you know, I trust her. She's been to raves and parties, etc., and I've never seen a problem with that at all. It's not my right to limit her hobbies, even if I don't always match her energy. And mind you, she has never been a heavy drinker, at least not around me, and we've never had to talk about her alcohol usage. She's been a well-behaving adult for all of our relationship, and if she has been drunk, it's always stayed well within the limits of good taste. Well, she then said that what happened wasn't planned, and that it just kind of did, and that she wasn't herself, which honestly just made me feel a knot in my stomach, like she was preparing me for something really bad. So I encouraged her to just say it, that she has already said enough for me to not back down now. I mean, I really deserve to know about this. She then said that the trip honestly went well regarding the original plan. They drank, went to the sauna by the lake, they swam around, they played games, they hung around like normal, and it doesn't sound awful, right? It sounds like a normal weekend trip with a bunch of friends. So then, later that night, they had been drinking more, they were partying and listening to music, enjoying themselves, and some of them were drinking and hanging out in the hot tub, while some of them were hanging out inside the cabin playing a board game and talking. Now, my girlfriend kinda talks in circles about this, and tries proving during our talk how it was in the end a good trip, and that they all really did enjoy it. But eventually though, she gets to the point and tells me why she's been so down. Later in the evening, someone had suggested they do a drinking game, and honestly, I don't see any issue with that, since I like partying and I like games too. It's all this good fun within these set limits. They had played bottle spin, the usual, with an added twist of drinking or doing the dare, and a couple of the girls were pushing it and encouraging it. She admitted she went along with it and wanted to play along, but the way she said it honestly makes me just feel like, man, I don't know. She really looked ashamed of herself and kinda said it in a quiet tone. The dares had been innocent and normal at first, kind of the tame stuff that you might expect, the usual that you hear everywhere. They would ask questions like, who's your celebrity crush? What's your darkest secret? Sing a particular song, and I imagine the rest would be along those lines. But eventually they had gotten out of hand as the game went on and more drinks were consumed. Some of the girls then started to dare the others to kiss each other, pick out who they would F, marry, kill, if you know what I mean, pour out drinks into each other's mouths and stuff like that. And obviously it sounds like to me something that can lead to something very bad very quickly. My girlfriend then says she didn't know better or deny a good time. She says she felt it was fun in the moment and didn't feel that she did anything wrong, and it was all consensual and nobody minded it, and that it's normal for girls to do after getting tipsy, and that she doesn't even remember everything that well, and apparently had a hangover the next day, and says she isn't really sure if she did anything at all. She then said that she felt bad because she obviously doesn't like the girls that way, or she would say that she normally doesn't do these kinds of things, and only kind of watches from the side. She never explicitly says what she participated in, and what exact action she took during the game, but she talks like she's guilty, so it's all just a bit confusing. Well, there was one girl there with them on the trip who we will call Ellie for the sake of the story. Now, I've met her, and she's the fun, easygoing type of person, and the one I mentioned earlier in my post that doesn't seem like she would hurt me or her in any kind of way. I then asked my girlfriend if she was there since I know she was with them, and that I wanted to know if I was totally wrong about her. And honestly, I wanted to know if they all sucked and played along knowing that she has a boyfriend. My girlfriend then said that Ellie had not participated and kind of left the cabin when things started happening. Apparently, she had mentioned that she was not feeling well and that she would be sitting this one out and just kind of left and came back later in the night. They had talked later that night outside, but says that nothing happened between them, which honestly I completely believe. I don't know why she brought it up since Ellie's actions don't sound suspicious anyways, and I would not have expected her to do anything between them, so this just kind of felt like a weird extra detail that she added in. My girlfriend then said that she hasn't talked to her or the girls much after the trip, and I want to take a step back just to let everybody know that I didn't yell at her or get angry, but instead I just kind of sat there. I didn't know at first how to respond since she just didn't sound like her usual considerate self. She kept saying that she didn't know why she shut down, and she's been feeling horrible ever since then, that she didn't know how to tell me, and that she has needed time to word her thoughts. Well, we've been distant with each other ever since we had the talk, and it's just this heaviness between us ever since she got back, and now I know why, and I really just don't even know what to do now. I told her I needed space and I went for a walk. I then came back and just kind of sat there in the living room, not really even looking at her. Now, am I treating her the same way now? I mean, I'm shutting her out, I'm ignoring the problem, you know, the elephant in the room, not acknowledging that things are kind of messed up, because obviously I should not be okay with this. I don't see a life without her, so her behavior is really hard to accept. It makes me question if I should sleep somewhere else tonight, or if I should break it off immediately. I mean, everything is just so messy in my head, and I don't know what to do or even how to approach it. I've really never been the confrontational type either, and even through all of this, I really do love her. Like seriously, I really do, but I don't know if I can look at her in the same way again. Not just because of what she maybe did, but because she came home and shut me out, made me feel like I was crazy for even noticing that something was wrong. I feel like this is something she should have told me immediately, because this obviously affects us. And honestly, I don't even know if we're going to be a thing after this. We've set clear boundaries in our relationship and never crossed them, and the fact that she's still leaving details out is really bothering me, and I just just don't know what to do. Okay, before we go any further still, the original poster has a final update for this entire story. To give some additional context, they've tried to reach out to Ellie to figure out exactly what's going on, because the girlfriend is not giving any information, and essentially Ellie confirmed that more people were joining them over the weekend, which was more than just the initial girlfriend group, and then basically just went back to him and said, okay, go figure this out with your girlfriend, I don't really care about this situation. So we essentially know that yes, the girlfriend did something, and then yes, there were more people there than anyone expected. And with that bit of context, this is the final update the original poster had to say. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to write this down for closure for myself and for the people who followed this, because this is a lot. I'll be staying somewhere else for a couple of days, maybe even more, before starting to make preparations for splitting off. I finally had a proper conversation with Ellie, and it wasn't quick. We talked all evening, and she didn't seem to want to at first, but eventually she opened up. She was the only one who wasn't drinking or participating, and I respect her for being so straightforward with me. She then told me the following. The group was drinking heavily, and at one point, some of the girls invited a few guys over who were staying nearby. And yes, these are guys that I had no idea would be there at all. Ellie then says that she's not sure if this was part of the plan all along, or if it was the girl's idea to do so in the moment. At the very least, she didn't know about it beforehand. And apparently, the drinking game started getting more intense with the guys involved. Well, according to Ellie, my girlfriend ended up making out with two different people. One of the girls, who, by the way, it's the same girl who told me not to worry about it and wouldn't give me answers when I contacted her originally, and on top of that, she made out with one of the other guys. Apparently, there was a lot of touching that wasn't just playful. As far as Ellie knows, my girlfriend didn't spend quality time with anyone, if you know what I mean, because Ellie says that she left and didn't know the happenings afterwards. But this was far past anything I would ever be okay with, and definitely past anything we ever agreed was acceptable in our relationship. What hit me the hardest was how, according to Ellie, my girlfriend wasn't even that drunk at that point. Tipsy, sure, but not blackout or out of control. She had been laughing, very involved, and didn't seem pressured. She definitely wasn't out of it like she tried to make it sound. Ellie left because she was uncomfortable, and when she returned later, my girlfriend was still in full party mode, and talking was all blurry, and she was just a complete mess. I talked with my girlfriend, who is now my ex-girlfriend, over the phone, but all I got was mumbles or silent treatment. I even told her straight up that I know what she did, and that she could at least admit it to me before I break it off. I asked if I meant anything to her, or if all of our time together has just been fake, or just some kind of act for her. I asked her about how long she's had problems with her drinking, since I've always thought of her as a mature and smart woman. Well, when I asked this, she was sobbing, and told me she could help me understand if I came home, and that she could make up for it, and even if she did do it, she still loved me. So honestly, I'm just completely done. I can't stay in something where I'm lied to, gaslit, and made to feel like I'm overreacting for noticing something is off. She came home and shut down instead of being honest. She let me stay confused even when trying to comfort her, not to mention that she should have been honest the second she walked through the door. Not that it would have made anything right about what she did. But regardless, I'm thankful for all the messages I got and all the support I received, because this has been very rough and incredibly hard to handle. Holy crap, dude. Like, this is some serious stuff going on, man. Like, the original poster was spot on from the very beginning. They knew that something was off, but they just simply couldn't prove it. They literally said, okay, something's weird here. What's going on? You literally are not acting like yourself. Like, just tell me what's going on. And yet the original poster's girlfriend could not do it. She knew she was like completely screwed, and she ruined her relationship. Which, by the way, good for the original poster for breaking up with her. This is some toxic, crazy behavior that you do not deserve in the slightest, dude. Because at the end of the day, you absolutely didn't do anything wrong. Your girlfriend cheated on you 100%. So hopefully life gets better for you moving forward, and I'm honestly so sorry that any of this happened, because I'm sure this is devastating for you and incredibly hard to deal with. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my brother's computer repair after he refused to help me when I needed him the most? Because he's now saying that I'm being unfair and I'm holding it against him, despite the fact that what I needed help with was really important. Because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my brother and I have had a rocky relationship for several years. Recently his computer broke down and he asked me to help cover the repair cost, which would be about $400 because he can't really afford to buy a new one. But here's the thing that's really causing problems with me. 6 months ago, I had an emergency. I was stuck at home because my heating broke during a freezing night, and I called him for help. And for reference, he knows that kind of stuff. Well, when I called him, he refused to come by, saying that he was too busy. I ended up calling the technician, which seriously set me back a lot financially. But now that he's asking me for money, I'm just telling him no. And no, this is not something he could fix himself because he doesn't understand anything about this kind of thing. Well, when I said no to him, he got angry and said I was being unfair. But I just told him I'm not willing to help out after how he treated me last last time, but I will say, on the other side of this, I also think if I help him now, maybe he'd be kind enough to do the same thing for me when I need it. So seriously, am I the jerk for not giving my brother $400 for his computer? Because I'm really not sure where to go with this. No, I don't think this is something you need to worry about. This is literally just a computer that, from the sounds of it, is not something he needs for work or anything like that, because if it was for work, then I guarantee you they would fix it and repair it if they needed to. If anything, it's just a personal computer that he wants working, and he's just going to you looking for $400 so he can have what he wants. But that is so different in my opinion compared to what you went through, because literally you're dealing with no heating and a freezing house. That is absolutely not even close to the same thing. And for him to even begin to compare the two is just so weird in my opinion. So no, you're not the jerk for not giving him money, because it doesn't sound like he would ever return the favor. And I guarantee you, even if you did help him out, chances are he definitely would not return that kindness at all, and you would just be wasting your time and money on something that he could easily figure out on his own.
Rich Karen humiliates me for working a poor person's job, so I make them look stupid in front of management. Here's what happened. Subscribe to AmITheA Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. So this happened at a place I used to work at. The place is a similar style to Subway, but it has much better food and is much higher quality. A little backstory. We were expecting a party of around 50 people into the restaurant, so we were gonna have an exhausting day ahead of us. You know where this is gonna go. I had just come back from a delivery and put on my apron to start working again. I was in the prep room, basically where everything is prepared to be served, and I was just getting ready for the huge party by getting out whatever we were short of. The party arrived. My manager called out, "Hey, here they come!" And that's when I saw it was gonna be rough out there. I start getting everything ready and chopping onions, tomatoes, and whatever we were short of already. After 30 minutes or so, about half the party has been served, I'm done with all the prepping, so I decide that the tables need to be cleaned, because no one that's out front could do it. I get all the cleaning stuff and start wiping down some of the inside tables. We have outside ones, but no one ever used them, or at least not when I was working there. I get done with my first table and I'm about to start the second, and I feel a tap on my shoulder. I turn around and I see Karen and her entitled gremlin, who's around 12-ish, hovering over me. I was kneeling down because I was getting the cleaners and the towel. I say, "If you need a table cleaned, I can do it right now if you want," and I stand up. "I don't need a table cleaned, I want to be served right now," she said in a very condescending tone. Like I'm the one who caused all this. Well, as you can see, there are about 20 people in front of you waiting to be served, and I can't do anything about it. That's how many people were left in the party who hadn't ordered yet. I want them to step aside and let me order first, and I don't want to do that. She's so entitled that she doesn't even do her own dirty work. I can't do that, but you can ask them yourself. Karen stomps over to the line and is asking to cut in front of them. It doesn't work. While she was talking to them, the gremlin stayed behind, and I talked to him about football because he was wearing a Seahawks jersey. It was nice and all until he said this: "Your job's pretty crap, and I shouldn't take any advice from you." I gave him tips on how to spot fouls and stuff like that. "I bet my mom could buy this whole establishment because she knows the owner." She doesn't. "I don't deserve to talk to you. Now go away, poor man." I got angry, but before I could insult him, his mom comes back over. "Did you have fun talking to this poor man?" I'm getting even more angry. "I loved putting him into his place right where he belongs." I get even more angry and am about to tear both the gremlin and Karen's head off, but have to prevent that to prevent me from causing a brawl. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but can you leave this establishment? You're causing an unwanted and unnecessary scene." Perfect. Now they can serve me because they have all their eyes on me. Now she has a smile like she just won the lottery. "If you don't leave, then I might have the manager remove you from the establishment." This must have set her off. "I know the person who owns this establishment. I can get you fired." Ah, classic entitled parents. Do you even know his name? His name is, John. That's his name. It's not, by the way, but we did have someone named John working there. "Okay, then talk to my manager then, since you know his name." I'm trying not to burst into laughter on how this is going to fail. Karen calls out for John, but gets no response, because John wasn't working that day. One of my coworkers heard her screaming this, and they talk, saying that John is off today and if this is important, then you can call him. so she requested his phone number. Our company policy is that you can't give people's numbers to people even if it's their friends and family. She gets mad and stomped over to me in anger. Give me his phone number so I can call him and he can fire you. I can't, because my manager is working up front and you can see her now, as I point to where she is. That's not your manager, just some 18-year-old trying to provide money for her poor family. Yes, she said that. Why do you think it's not her? I shouldn't have said this, but I did because curiosity. Because a woman shouldn't be a manager because they don't provide good role models for everyone else. Kind of ironic, her saying that. And only a man should run an establishment because they would be nicer to its customers. I want to be served right now. I don't know how someone can be sexist against their own gender. My manager finally walks over and asks what the problem is. She goes on about how I was rude to her and threatened her to leave or else. And of course the gremlin agreed with everything and added a few things such as theft. He said I was trying to steal his phone because I was poor. My manager said we have security cameras in the back room, so we can check if all this is true. Karen gets super white, but stays calm and said this. I just came here to get some food for my starving child. The kid had Ray-Ban glasses, a Rolex, and a really nice pair of Jordans. My anger finally overflowed and decided it didn't want to be contained. You're not poor. Just look at your son. I bet you could just sell his stuff that he's wearing and buy a small yacht. As for you, you're also not poor because look at what you're wearing. You're wearing some glittery high heels that make your flat butt have some curve just to make your husband happy. Oh, and let's not forget the Gucci handbag you have that you put your dog in who yaps all the time just like you. Just so you can get attention because you're just some trophy wife that doesn't get enough attention at home. So you only get it from starting trouble. My manager asks me to go into his office. I thought I was going to get fired for that stunt. She finally gets Karen and the gremlin out and comes back to her office. I feel sorry for you, but all we'll get is a bad review on Yelp or something. I thought you were going to fire me. No, everyone needs to get their anger out at someone, and I liked how you put her in her place. But let's get to finishing this party's order. I'll call you out if I need you, but just stay there for a moment to cool off. All that was going through my mind was that I'm going to get fired today and should start saying goodbye to everyone I worked with. The manager comes back. It was about 20 minutes or so, and I'm sweating bullets. We're done serving the party and I want you to go home. I think you've been put through enough today. So you aren't going to fire me? Do you want to get fired? No, I'm just curious why you didn't. I don't want to lose you. You're a hard worker that doesn't complain about things and gets the job done. It would hurt the establishment if you were to go away. Also, it would hurt everyone here because they like you a lot. Have a great day and see you tomorrow, I guess. Same to you. I left and I never saw that jerk in there again up until the day I quit. I really feel like this is one of those stories where everyone started clapping, because that's really what it feels like. We're gonna blow right past that though, and assume that this is a true story. Or maybe our original poster has a bit of a language barrier or something. I kinda got that vibe while reading it, and this is the way they've chosen to portray the story. My main issue with this one is I find it hard to believe that anyone could be that entitled. You don't say that kind of stuff in public. I don't care who you are. You'd learn very quickly in a life like that you're not going to get the kind of treatment that you think you deserve. You need to treat people with at least a modicum of respect. And then the kid's just as bad wearing a Rolex watch and stuff. I don't know. You see why I have a hard time buying this story. If it is all true, then hey, hats off to our original poster for actually speaking up and saying something. And the manager for not giving them too much of a hard time about it. Some people really do just need to be put into their place. And this was definitely one of those people. You can't really take it out on your employee for doing what needs to be done. Entitled woman seems to think my life revolves around her. Last year, I was working at a customer service desk at a mall, answering phones, helping customers, selling gift cards, things like that. One day I get a phone call from an older sounding woman. Hi, I recently bought a washing machine from you and need to know how it works. Hi, I'm guessing you're trying to get through to the appliance store. This is the front desk for the mall. I'll transfer you through to the store. No, I don't want to be put on hold again. Can you just help me? I don't know much about washing machines, sorry. The people from the appliance store would be much more helpful. We went back and forth like this for a bit, but she really didn't want her call transferred. So I said I'd do my best to help her. Turns out there wasn't anything wrong with this specific washing machine. She just didn't know how to use the washing machine at all. Told her how to turn it on and put the powder in and all that stuff. About 20 to 30 minutes later, I get another call from this woman. This time she wanted me to tell her why her internet wasn't working. I offered to find the number for her internet provider she was with, but no, she wanted me to fix it. Turns out she just needed to restart her modem, so that was an easy fix, but still frustrating when I had an actual job to be doing. About a week goes by and I haven't heard from her. She then shows up at the mall and asks for me by name. She goes up to my desk, which my manager directed her to, and hands me an envelope full of cash and says, "My power bill's due, I need you to pay it." This was the final straw for me. And after telling her multiple times that I wasn't going to do that for her, and her not listening and getting very worked up, I ended up calling security on her and having her removed from the mall. I'm not your personal assistant, jerk. This is another one that I just have a hard time buying. Like, who is the lady that reaches this age and hasn't learned how to interact with people properly? That thinks the receptionist at the mall is there to fix all of her problems and is gonna pay her bills for her? I don't know. Maybe she has dementia or something. But something's wrong with this whole situation, one way or another. Entitled Mother asks me to lose a Pokemon battle to her gremlin. For our cast for this one, we have me, the Pokemon Master, Entitled Mom, Entitled Kid, who's around 9 years old I think, and Mall Security. This happened well over a year ago, so forgive me if my memory isn't perfect. So I was at one of my local malls and had just finished looking through the EB Games, Canada's version of GameStop. Now, I'm a rather heavy-set person, so I tire easily, and figured I would take a break on a bench just outside the store. So I'm just sitting there playing Pokemon Moon with headphones in, so I didn't instantly notice the Entitled Mother and Entitled Kid had stopped by me trying to get my attention. The gremlin then taps on my leg and I look up and remove my headphones. "Hi there." "Hello. My son was wondering what game you're playing." "Oh, this? It's Pokemon Moon version." "Oh, mommy, I have that game too. Can I have it to play?" "Sure, sweetie." She reaches into her purse and pulls out a 3DS. The Entitled Kid then looks at me with a smug look, powers on his system, points at me and shouts, "I'm the best trainer ever. Let's battle." I look over at the Entitled Mother who nods, so I reply, "All right, kid, bring it on," in a calm but confident voice. The Entitled Mother then leans over and whispers to me, "Please let him win. I don't want him to feel bad." I awkwardly nod and the battle begins. We both have even level Pokemon, so that wasn't a factor. I was just taking it easy and the kid pulled up a 3-5 lead on me. He'd been insulting me with each move I made, but what he said next crossed a line. "You're so pathetic. You should just quit this dumb game. You couldn't beat a preschooler. You suck, fat butt." And he proceeds to stick his tongue out at me. Now, I don't mind taunting during a battle. I mean, it's all part of really any game. However, there are lines you don't cross, and he had just crossed one. I decided then and there I was gonna give him a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. His cocky attitude got to me, so then I began to battle properly and coldly. The Entitled Mother was watching, and her face kept contorting more and more as one by one Entitled Kid's remaining 5 Pokemon got swept aside, giving me the victory, 3-0. The Entitled Mother and her gremlin just sat there in stunned silence as I broke the connection and packed away my system, ready to resume my day. Entitled Mother stood up, grabbed my shoulder, spun me around to face her, and, "How dare you? My son was supposed to win." The kid is now flailing on the ground. "It's not fair! Not fair! Wah! See? Look what you've done now, fatty!" By now, a crowd is formed and is watching what's unfolding. At this point, I'm absolutely done with this, and I say, "Listen here, lady." I remove her hand from my shoulder. First of all, never touch me again. Second, your kid, who was still screaming on the floor, crossed the line with his insults. I was fine throwing the battle before that, so don't blame me. Blame that mouth on your kid. "How dare you talk about my child that way? She tries to smack me and I block her. Just then, mall security, having seen the crowd, comes through and sees me holding back entitled mother's arms and the entitled kid still flailing and wailing on the ground. He says, "What the heck's going on here?" Entitled mother steps back and starts playing innocent. "Oh, officer, thank God. This brute assaulted me and tried to steal my son's game after verbally insulting him. I want him arrested now." That's not what happened. What happened is she proceeds to cut me off. "Shut up, you liar! You're a child abuser!" As the entitled mother finally attends to her screaming gremlin, impressive lung capacity by the way, I move aside with the mall security and explain the whole situation. He radios to the security office to check the cameras and takes witness statements while that happens. The camera, along with the crowd, confirm my story. As mall security turns to entitled mother and entitled kid and says, "I've heard all I need to hear." Entitled mother has a smug grin on her face. "Ma'am, I know that your kid threw a fit after losing and then you assaulted this man." She proceeds to turn white as a ghost, while the kid just sobs. "I'm gonna need you to stay here while I contact the police." I say, "Hold on, mall security. I'm declining to press charges. It's not worth the time. Plus, as rude and obnoxious as she and her kid are, I'm not going to be responsible for ripping a parent and child apart." The security guard turns back to the mother and kid. "You're both banned from the mall indefinitely. Be glad that's all that's happening." Entitled mother then grabs her gremlin and stuffs his game system away, flips me, mall security, and the crowd off before running out the closest exit. With that, the crowd dispersed and I finally went about my day knowing I had just schooled this little jerk in Pokemon. Most of this I'm on board with until about halfway through. Like you said, when the kid started getting nasty with his insults and stuff, that's when you draw the line. You're not gonna reward that kind of behavior. You gotta teach him a lesson. And apparently mom was not happy about him learning anything. It's probably a lesson she should have taught him herself a long time ago though. A little humility never hurt anyone. The way it escalated though was just out of control. You're really gonna sit there and try and make those claims in the middle of a mall when there's people around and cameras? You can't just throw those kinds of accusations out there. Either way, as long as she's not allowed back there, hopefully you don't have to deal with her again. Male Karen destroys my racket so I wouldn't defeat his son at a tournament. So a little backstory. I had an incident with my arm previously, also due to an entitled parent. I decided to get back into a sport to challenge myself and to practice more with it. So when I get all my mobility back, I decided to give racquetball a shot. For those who don't know, it's more or less squash but with a way bigger and bouncier ball, and also different racket styles. After almost 2 years of practicing when I was 15, my trainer told me that I should enter a tournament, since the winners would be getting a trip to play in the state tournament, and if they won that, also in the national tournament. So I gave it a shot. Now let's introduce the cast. We have mom, trainer, entitled parent's son, who was a cool adversary by the way, referee, and me. So this happened during the quarterfinals of the state tournament. It was really hard to get there since many of the participants were experienced people, but I had managed to get that far. However, when it was about 5 minutes away from my turn to play against my next opponent, I felt someone tap my shoulder. And here he is, a huge man who seemed to have exchanged all of his hair to his beard, just staring at me with a sort of fake smile and an unnatural killing glare in his eyes. The dialogue went something like this.
"Hi.
Hello.
So, you play pretty good, boy.
Thanks, I suppose."
You know, the boy you're about to face is my son. He's been practicing this for years."
I was assuming it was just an attempt to be a good sport. Well, me too. I suppose it's going to be a really good match then.
"Yeah, sure. We'll see. I was actually wondering if you could just, quit."
What?
"Yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. Also, you'll actually do yourself a favor since I know my son would wreck you if you face each other."
I'm actually getting kind of upset with his attitude at this point. Okay, then we'll see who the best player is.
"Are you for real?"
At this point, my trainer jumps in.
Hey, original poster, it's your turn now."
Entitled parent stopped his sentence and just walks away with a really bad mood. I swear that if glares could kill, this would be John Wick's version of them. So the game started and it was a really good game. It was neck and neck, but I was gaining a lead. Just a few minutes later into the game, a horn is played. This means that something has happened and the game needs to be stopped. It appears that the game that was happening next to us, which was also to decide the semi-finalist, one of the contestants fell off and got a lesion. so he wasn't able to play and needed to go to the hospital. As I got out of the game room to see what was happening, I left my racket at the side of my competitors. Huge mistake. So it appears that while everyone was distracted, Male Karen saw it as a chance to sabotage me so his son could win. He literally entered the room and destroyed my racket as if a bowling ball had passed through it. Fortunately, this wasn't unnoticed. My trainer spotted him. "Hey, what the heck are you doing?"
Nothing.
My mom chimed in here too. "Hey, that's my son's racket. What are you doing to it?"
Oh, well, I was just ensuring that nothing happens to them. But when I got here, it was like this.
"What? I literally saw you breaking the cords." At this point, the referee intervenes.
Sir, I must tell you that it is a severe infraction to the game rules. Your son can no longer play in this tournament.
This isn't fair. I didn't do anything. Surely it's just a poor trick from him.
Referring to my trainer.
He's just doing it to get his student to the semifinals, since he can't do anything to win against my son.
Well, this can be rectified by simply looking at the cameras that are recording the matches.
Suddenly, every inch of confidence in Male Karen's face vanished. I just kind of sat back and watched the show.
Okay, sir, I'm sorry, but as the camera shows, you are guilty, so your son will be disqualified.
Oh, not this again. Thanks for not trusting in me, Dad. Even if I couldn't win, it was because my opponent was better and deserved to win fairly.
Oh, come on. I was just trying to help you. I'm sure you could win anyways.
Then why did you sabotage me instead of trusting him? At this point, a mix of rage and embarrassment leaked out in both his face and voice.
This doesn't concern you. Also, don't be that confident. You don't have a racket, so you can't play anyway.
No, Dad, this does concern him since you broke his racket. And yes, he does have a racket.
At this point, I was surprised when the kid grabbed his own racket, which was way newer than mine from what I could see and was way more expensive as well, and gave it to me.
Please, take it as an apology for my dad's behavior. I hope you win the tournament.
At this moment, my mom and trainer arrive with the security of the place, so they take Male Karen away with his son. He was absolutely enraged at this point because his son was on my side. My trainer asked my mom if she wanted to press charges, but she said I was the one that had to make that decision, to which I happily said no, since I actually won and got a new racket in that situation. I felt bad for the kid having to deal with his dad. What happened next was that I got myself into the finals, but ended up losing to the one who actually made it to the semifinals in the national tournament. From what I could tell of Male Karen, he received obligatory parenting courses and is a way better person now. Also, the kid is one of my best friends nowadays. And again, everybody clapped. I'm not sure what's going on with the stories here today, guys, but yeah, a lot of these don't exactly seem genuine, do they? A lot of the times I think people just want to be the hero, and they have that brief moment by posting a story like this on Reddit. Who knows? Maybe it is true. In which case, I'd say the hero of this story is Male Karen's kid. He's the one that actually acted the most adult out of everyone involved. Karen has a racist outburst on a Mexican bus driver when he was just trying to do his job. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. For a bit of background information, I live a good 3.5 hours from my dad and my mom and stepdad. I can't drive, so when I need to go up to see them, I usually get a bus ticket since they're relatively cheap, and I've never had a problem with them. Since it's a long drive, the bus takes a small break at a city about 45 minutes away from my town. When this happens, the bus will pull up to a gas station that's also one of the bus stops, and the driver will announce where we are and that we'll be there for 10 to 15 minutes. So we can get out and stretch our legs or go to the gas station to use the restroom or buy some snacks. When this happened, I was heading back to my town, so I've already been on the bus for a few hours already. When I first got on, I was the only one. But at the other bus stops before the gas station, some other people got on. No one super noticeable, but I wasn't really paying too much attention. Mainly students and people my age, but there was also what I assumed to be a mother and her 2 kids. I was sitting in the very back with earphones in and playing on my Switch, so again, not paying too much attention. Anyways, we get to the stop and the driver announces where we are and that we're taking a small 10-minute break so we can get out and do whatever. I stay in my seat since I'm pretty deep into my game and I don't need anything. But notice some people get off the bus, including the mom and her kids. About 10 minutes pass and the bus driver gets back on and starts counting everyone. I'm pretty sure he has a list of everyone and knows how many people that are supposed to be on the bus, and gets back to the front of the bus and announces he's missing 3 people. Hint, it's the mom and her kids. So we can't leave until they get back. Great. I go back to playing Breath of the Wild on my Switch. I'm not super bothered since I think they'll be back soon and the buses have outlets so I can charge my phone and Switch. They get back 30 minutes later. I'm not sure if the bus driver called them or something, but when the mom steps on the bus, the driver's obviously ticked off and asks her where she was. The conversation went something like this.
Ma'am, where were you? We've been waiting for half an hour.
We were getting food. My children are hungry and we stopped for a break. She motions to her kids who both have bags from a fast food joint.
The break was 10 minutes. You were gone for 40. Please try to not hold up the bus again. I have a schedule to follow. You're free to stretch or use the gas station for a bathroom break or snacks, so please don't do that again.
This is when chaos breaks out. Wow, my children need real food, not chips or whatever crap that place has. If anything, your breaks should be longer.
Sorry, ma'am. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and if I get behind on one trip, I'll be behind on the others. Please, take a seat and I'll start driving.
No, this is unacceptable. I'll have you fired, you insert many derogatory slurs here.
Ma'am, one more time. Sit down so I can continue driving.
Screw off, slur. I'll get your slur butt fired.
Okay, fine. Get off or I'm calling the police.
Fine, call them. I'll get your stupid butt deported. The bus driver was Mexican and has an accent. Sorry guys, I'm not gonna put on an accent. So he calls them. They show up within a few minutes and the bus driver and the entitled mother and her kids get off to talk to the police. So I'm not sure what they said, but after a few minutes, she storms onto the bus, grabs her bags, and stomps off the bus. Seriously, the whole bus was shaking. I asked the guy a few rows in front of me what happened out there, and the police obviously took the bus driver's side and told the entitled mother they'll find her a way to get to her location, but she can't use this one. She cussed up a storm at them, but they just told her to get her bags and come with them. After she and her kids left, bus driver got back on the bus, apologized for the wait, and started driving again. The rest of the ride went smoothly and I got back home late, but overall okay. Still, it sucks to lose an hour of your day just because of jerks. Seriously, how's this woman gonna waste everyone on that bus's time and then turn around and start yelling at the bus driver who generously decided to wait for her? Like, that's the most surprising thing to me. The fact that the bus was still waiting an extra half hour just for her. They must have been in the middle of nowhere or something, or he wouldn't have waited like that. But to come back with that kind of attitude and start yelling slurs and things at the bus driver who very nicely waited for you is just one of the rudest things you could possibly do. No one's gonna be taking your side in this one. All you've done is waste everyone's time and made yourself look like a jerk in front of your kids. My entitled jerk of a father said he wished I had bought him a Christmas present instead of making him one. My dad has always been entitled. I have autism in the middle of the scale, but that made me a victim of his bullying and harassment. Growing up, he always put me down over the smallest thing. I was singing in the church choir and I thought I sounded okay, but oh no, he thought I needed schooling because I wasn't able to hit a high note well. Well, sorry for being nervous on stage and that made me choke. He's done a lot of mean things to me and my siblings, but the worst was a couple years after my parents divorced. It was Christmas time. I started getting really interested in my craft work and made a lot of things to give to my family members. I made picture frames to look like their windows. Crude work, but I was young. They all loved them. But did my old man? I'll let you decide. I made one with all my siblings and me in a window frame and made it look cute for him. I even made two with him and I in a window frame. I wrapped it up in what could be called beginner's wrapping and hid it under the tree. Once we got to opening presents, I was excited to see what his reaction was. My mom was with us, so she got to see too. He opened them and gave what looked to be a smile, but small.
Well, isn't that cute?
My entitled jerk of a dad said, making me smile wide. Thank you, I worked really hard on them, I boasted, because I was happy to hear that he really liked them. Here's where it got worse, folks.
They're adorable, but I was hoping for something paid than made.
Yep, he said that. He really did. I was about 13 or 14 when this happened, so I should have been angry or yelled at him. But because of my autism, it took a while for the words to sink in. You don't like it?
No, I do, but I'm not really into this sort of thing. But you did an amazing job, hun.
He smiled still at me and placed it at his side on the couch where he sat. I still didn't know how to respond. Maybe I was too preoccupied in the fact that it's Christmas and I got some cool stuff, that I didn't think of how he responded to my gift. I just sat there quiet and confused, maybe even a little sad. Oh, but this infuriated my mom. My mother was someone you do not want to mess with. Say one thing bad and she'll turn your life around so fast, you won't even realize what horrible punishment you've put yourself into. She's very protective of us, and once she heard those words coming out of that jerk's mouth, she was angry. After getting home from Dad's house, we all went to our rooms, or the TV room, either to play with our new toys or to watch cartoons. I was in the TV room till I heard my mom scream into the phone in the bathroom. She must have wanted to wait so she wouldn't spoil the fun we were having back at his house, and didn't want any of us to hear her. But we did. She was screaming about how selfish and inconsiderate he was to say that when I worked so hard for the photo frames. I couldn't hear what the jerk was saying over the phone, but it must have been his usual snarky talk that continued to boil my mom's rage. She continued to scream and occasionally cuss at him, which she rarely did, so it was a surprise, till she got what she can out and hung up. Later on, she cuddled me in bed saying I shouldn't let this bother me, and tried to comfort me the best she can. She always laid down in bed with us to comfort us no matter how old we are, but nothing too bad. She's a mother and wanted to cheer us up. So after several minutes of calming back rubs and kind words to say to a sad and broken child, she got up and walked out of my room. I continued to cry as his words slowly sunk in, and later made me wish to never see him over Christmas time or birthday. To this day, I still have a hard time making things for those I care about, because I'm afraid of what they'll say about it. Most of them are good, but it's still hard for me. You don't even realize sometimes that if something happened in your life that was bad, you think nothing of it, till it sinks in eventually and possibly ruined your life from then on, which is what he did to me and my siblings over the years, till we finally stopped seeing him all at once. He's done more mean things to me. Once was how he tried to force me into answering questions about himself for raffle tickets, but that's another story. He still thinks nothing is wrong with him, and will get angry if you even say anything about it to him. I'm glad he's out of my life, and if he dies, I'll cry, yeah, but at least the world will be done with that entitled jerk. As unfortunate as it is, some people just don't know how to accept a gift like that. And unfortunately enough for you, this person happened to be your father. There are many things that leads a person to be this way, and you can tell it from their overall personality, as is the case with your dad. It is generally just a sense of entitlement. It seems like that's something that you caught on to pretty early in your life, unfortunately. In a lot of cases when that's the way they are, you're just better off without him. It sounds like you have at least one parent who's very supportive and loving, so you got that going for you. A classic Karen move of yelling at a store associate over a policy they have no control over. First, a little bit of background. I work for a shoe company, and it's not an outlet where the shoe boxes are all on the sales floor. So I have to provide full service, measuring feet, getting the shoe boxes from the back room, etc. And this was during December, 'tis the season. I'd gotten a brand new store manager that was a real piece of work, scheduled me for over 40 hours a week when I was only legally allowed to work a maximum of 20. And when she was assigned work from our district manager, she would dump the work on me and take the day off. She lied about being pregnant for 2 months before actually getting pregnant. So company policy on gift cards during this holiday season was to call a certain number to verify a customer's card and ID had matching addresses to prevent fraud. Our mall had a problem with credit card stealing. This was company policy, and failure to do so was termination. In comes our entitled Karen. For our cast, we have Crappy Manager, Entitled Karen, Adam, the manager from another store, and me. We were horribly understaffed, and it was a very busy Friday. It was only the Crappy Manager and I with about 15 people in a small small store at a time. At this point in the day, everyone was trying to check out, and I'm usually very quick about checking people out until entitled Karen comes to my register. This conversation is paraphrased because I repressed the memory of this woman.
I want a gift card,
she demanded. Didn't even say please. Whatever, I'm used to rude customers. No problem, I'll just have to call a number to make sure your address on your ID matches your credit card. I picked up the store phone.
No, why do you need to do that?
She got more irritated. It's just to prevent fraud in our store, ma'am. She interrupted me.
Well, my address isn't going to match. I moved a few months ago.
At this point, I'm getting a little nervous because I rarely get customers that yell at me, and I don't like when people raise their voices to me. Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, then I can't sell you the gift card. If you want to avoid the whole call procedure, you could pay in cash.
I don't carry cash.
At this point, I looked over at Crappy Manager for assistance because I don't get paid enough to get yelled at by a Karen. Of course, Crappy Manager made sure to ignore my silent pleas and continued checking out her customers. Jerk. Ma'am, I can't sell you the gift card. I'm sorry.
Just do it. I've been to so many stores today trying to find your store's gift cards, and I couldn't find them anywhere but here.
Our gift cards are only sold in our stores. At this point, I'm tearing up because I don't handle being berated for something I can't change very well, and I walk into the back room. The store phone rang and it was another location. I answered. Hey, it's Adam. Can you ask? I interrupted him. Adam, I can't do this. This woman keeps yelling at me. I explained the situation, sobbing. Adam was the manager that trained me to be at this location, and he was a cool guy. He told me to calm down and that Crappy Manager will take care of it. She didn't. And since he forgot what he called for, he just wished me the best for the rest of my shift and hung up. I had stopped crying. I was gone for maybe 5 minutes from the floor when I came back out. The woman was still there with an annoyed look on her face.
I have money now. Can I buy the darn card already?
Yes, ma'am, you can. I did not say another word to this woman and just handed her the card after I put the money in my register. She snatched the card and stomped out of the store, mumbling insults about me in the store. The rest of the customers who had been waiting to be checked out weren't upset because they knew how unreasonable the woman was being, and all apologized, and the rest of my shift went off without any more angry Karens. I still tell that story. I work at the same shoe company but at a different location with my awesome manager, and when I told her the story, she talked about how she would have kicked the woman out. So yeah, don't yell at associates about company policy. We didn't make it and we aren't paid enough to endure your abuse, jerk. As someone who's spent many years working in retail, I can completely relate to this story. You have customers that get frustrated with you just trying to do your job. Even if it's a policy you don't necessarily agree with yourself, it's something that you have to do. You have no control over these decisions made by head office or your district manager or whoever. You gotta just go with the flow. And a lot of the time, they know that the policy is kinda crappy, but they're not the ones that have to take any flack from the customers. Unfortunately, it all falls to the people on the front line. So as a general rule, try and be nice to the people helping you behind the counter. Odds are, whatever you're upset with them about isn't their fault. Entitled Karen screams and throws a tantrum because I'm refusing to help her. I was looking at emails on my computer when the phone rings. I pick it up to hear a sweet voice on the other end. The conversation went something like this. Hello, welcome to company name. How may I help? So, my son's phone is broken, so you need to come and fix it. Okay, what phone is it and what's wrong with it? Is it smashed? Why do you need to know that? So we know how much to charge you. You charge people for this work? All you do is repair phones. It's not a job, so you don't get paid. It costs money to send people out and for the tools to fix it. Well, if you don't fix it for free, then I'm gonna have you fired. I'm friends with the owner. He's called Matt. Michael is my boss's name. If you're not gonna buy anything, then get off the line.
Let me speak to your manager. You will be fired.
My manager's at a meeting about our department's budget, so he's currently unavailable.
Liar! I want this phone fixed, you useless jerk, and I want compensation for you wasting my time.
She proceeds to yell other insults like go die and things like that, and also screams and stomps and throws a tantrum, screaming like a 2-year-old with no toy. So thankful our company calls are recorded. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm gonna have to hang up now. No, you will listen to me now. I hang up my phone, which immediately rings again. Hello? You're so rude. How dare you hang up on me? I don't have to put up with you. Hang on. Did you just insult me? Did you? She's screaming and crying like a child. I thought it was her kid. You're wasting my time. Shut up and act your age. Excuse me? You're so rude. Yes, excuse you. You've wasted my time and have given me a headache. She starts screaming and throwing a tantrum again. I need to put you on hold. It'll only be a minute. I muted myself and went for my break. I came back to hear her still screaming. I'm back. You're not welcome here. Goodbye. I hang up and block her. Now whenever I'm bored, I just listen to that recording and laugh at that jerk. How are you gonna call a repair service expecting it to be free? Come on now, lady. Of course they charge for that kind of work. Parts, labor, all kinds of things go into a business like that. What would make you think that they would just do it for free? And then when they don't, you have a complete mental breakdown and start acting like a 2-year-old? If you're gonna act like a child, I'm gonna treat you like a child. I'm not gonna reward that kind of behavior. You get to go sit in the corner until you've calmed down. I called out my parents for spending nearly 3 times as much on my sister's wedding as they did on mine. This happened 6 months ago, but I'm legitimately curious to see if I'm the jerk. I, 36-year-old male, got married 6 years ago to my wife. My wife's family is not well off like mine. When we announced our engagement, my parents gifted us $20,000 out of the blue for the wedding. We were shocked and so thankful. The money paid for my wife's dress, my and her siblings' wedding party outfits and makeup, and the venue and food. We managed to have a small, beautiful wedding, and even had $3,000 left over for the honeymoon. I'm beyond thankful for that money, and know that we would not have had our wedding without it. Plus, being able to pay for her family's outfits and makeup really helped lessen their financial burden. Here's where I need to ask if I'm the jerk. My sister is getting married, and I just happened to be at my parents' house and got into wedding talk. My sister was going on and on about all the plans. I come to find that my parents agreed to shell out $35,000 for the venue and cut her another $20,000 check for the other expenses. My sister and her fiance are both doctors. These expenses were outrageous to me because I've been married and I know it can be done significantly cheaper. I went to my mom and asked why she allowed my sister to pick such an expensive venue, and there was time to find another one. We made our wedding work off $20,000. How can she excuse my sister's being 3 times the cost? My parents are retired and in their late 60s and early 70s. She told me that my sister's future husband's family were high-class people and have certain expectations. I asked what that meant, and she said they couldn't be expected to have such a meager budget like my wedding was. I was floored. I asked her if she thought $20,000 was a meager budget, and what did that say about what she thought of my wife and her family? My mom said I was making a big deal out of nothing. A woman's family pays for the wedding. My sister was just having an expensive wedding, and it's none of my business. I agree that it is their money and they should spend it how they want, but that high class and meager budget comment has been eating at me since. It seems to me like my mom is saying that my wife was lucky to get a wedding because her family is not well off. I haven't mentioned this to my wife because she does have insecurities about how my parents feel about her, and it might have hurt her. Am I the jerk here for calling out my parents and how much they're spending on my sister's wedding? Okay, normally I would say it isn't really any of your business, that they have their own money that they can spend however they want. Maybe they're in a better place than they were before and feel they can splurge a little bit more on your sister's wedding. I wouldn't take it personally. But $35,000 just for the venue? That's absolutely insane. That just feels like your sister's taking advantage. And I would want to speak up at that point too. If your parents are saying to just stay out of it, then that would be what I do. But I totally understand why you would want to speak up. Fat-phobic family says my daughter's too fat to play basketball, so I make them regret it. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Okay, so for some background, I'm a father of a 9-year-old girl who's my whole world. Her mother and I split up 3 months after her birth when I found out she'd been cheating. Naturally, I got a DNA test and thankfully she was mine. Problem is, her mother doesn't care about her health. She feeds her whatever she wants and even gives her coffee and donuts for breakfast sometimes. It's a mess. I've called CPA and the police in the past for wellness checks, but it's gotten me nowhere. So since she was about 4, she's had a weight issue. Now on to today's story that happened about an hour ago. For our cast today, we have Entitled Kid 1, about 13 or 14, Entitled Kid 2, same age, they honestly look like twins, but definitely brothers, Entitled Mother, Entitled Father, my little girl, and me. So my daughter's aware she's overweight. She's constantly teased at school, so I've made it a habit to visit her at least 3 times a week each week for lunch, as she always asks me to come so she can eat in peace from the bullies. This weekend was her weekend with me, and she's taken a liking to basketball, which I think is great, and she asked me this morning to go to the park down the road in our community to shoot some baskets with her. Of course I say yes, and we go. When we get there, I park and immediately notice 2 kids, Entitled Kid 1 and 2, sitting at one of those park tables, cussing and throwing a basketball back and forth at each other. I pay them no mind and we walk up to the court that isn't being used. I also noticed 2 adults, who end up being our entitled parents. They're about mid-30s, sitting on a park bench about 30 feet away, smoking and messing around on their phones. We start shooting and she's having fun when I hear it.
Get the hell off the court, fatso. We were about to use it. You're too fat to play anyways. Look, you can't even make a shot.
My daughter is 9 and still learning, mind you.
Yeah, maybe go home and use a treadmill.
They both start laughing. Now, they said this with me right in front of them, and I'm ticked. I'm a big guy, about 6'1", 190 pounds. And unlike others, I don't like confrontation, but I'm not scared to engage if necessary. Okay, first off, both you kids, watch your mouths, and don't insult my daughter again. You really think that's okay? Insulting someone on something so sensitive and think it's a laughing matter? Your parents are doing something wrong. That's when the parents who were still at the bench hear me and join in on the fun, for them at least.
Who the heck do you think you are? Why are you yelling at my sweet boys?
Yeah, you better watch what you say, dude.
Your precious boys are standing here insulting my daughter and calling her fat. You two really think that's okay? To insult a child younger than them over something she's already bullied about at school? We're here trying to get some exercise in and play some basketball and just have fun. I don't need to deal with you and your little punk boys insulting her. Entitled Mom looks at me without blinking, like what I just said was the specials at a restaurant.
So, what's wrong with what they said? Look at her. She's fat, isn't she? They're being honest. She shouldn't be here.
What the F?
Yeah, they're doing her a favor. She's just embarrassing herself. I mean, look at her.
Then they all start laughing. Literally 2 teens and 2 adults laughing at my little girl while she's standing behind me and trying so hard not to cry. I lost it. All right, listen. You two, pointing at the parents, are trash. So they're being honest and that's okay? All right, fine. Here's some honesty. Your sons are punk bullies. And I promise you, eventually another kid will stand up for themselves and knock their teeth out. I, as a normal adult, despise bullying. You both are crap parents, thinking what your kids are doing is acceptable.
Watch what you say to my wife and sons. Your daughter is fat. Deal with it.
My daughter decides to speak up for herself.
Yeah? And you're a mean man who shouldn't say these things to people.
She's crying and I'm ticked and even more upset at this. Watch what I say? Or what, bud? What are you gonna do? You and your perfect little family seem to think that honesty is all right, no matter what form. So I'm telling you, you're all just bullies. And unlike my daughter, I'm an adult, and I won't put up with any more of your crap, especially if you say another word to my daughter. I swear you'll regret it. I was maybe 3 inches from the father's face when I said this. Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have said you'll regret it, but I was ticked and in protection mode. Entitled Dad just stares at me without moving for about 10 seconds, with me not moving either. We're not leaving. My daughter just wanted to have a fun day at the park, and I won't tolerate another negative word said against her. Test me if you want. Entitled Dad and Entitled Mom look at each other before finally Entitled Mom scoffs,
Entitled Kid 1 and Entitled Kid 2, let's go. We're going home.
They began walking away down the street towards their house. I'm watching them most of the way because I had a feeling they'd say something else. And I was right, sadly. When they're about 100 or so feet down the street, the dad yells, "How Have fun with your fat daughter, punk. And they hurry their walk. I start running after them. I was done and not putting up with this anymore. When I hear my daughter in a calm voice, "Daddy, just let them leave. Now we can play alone." She's smiling now and I can tell she's right. She just wants to have all this be over with. All right, sweetie, want to play horse?
Yeah, you go first. And thanks for sticking up for me, Daddy. I'm so sick of bullies.
Always, hon. And I know. Don't worry. Let's just have some fun. I'll always be there to help you when I can. I give her a hug. We had a good time for the next hour shooting hoops and then went home. Thanks for hearing me out, guys, and don't put up with jerks. It's kind of one thing for teenage boys to behave like this. Sadly, that's kind of to be expected. They're all little jerks. But to have the parents reinforce this behavior is just disgusting. They clearly learned it from them. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree after all. I completely agree with our original poster though, that one day some kid's gonna stand up to them and really put them in their place. And it sounds like they need it. People like this just like to push other people's buttons, and then they're surprised when they finally snap. In those situations, I don't even feel bad. The kid had it coming and needed it to happen. Maybe they can learn to treat people with a little more respect than their parents do. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. Entitled Kid smashes my keyboard on my brand new PC after his Karen mom made me let him play. I recently bought this PC that cost about $1,500 without counting the monitors and other stuff, and I was very delicate with it. My grandma's birthday was approaching, and since my family and my grandma live in the same city, all the other family members traveled to visit. I love my cousins, except one group. These kids are spoiled. Their mother doesn't care about them, so they developed into bratty and annoying kids. One is about 11, the oldest, and she's the least annoying, but she doesn't care what other people think and always does what she wants. The middle kid is about 8, and he's a crybaby. If we don't let him see our phones or let him play with them, he goes and cries to his mom or my parents. And the third one, about 4 or 5, is always making fun of and picking on the middle kid. He always breaks his toys and snitches on him. Anyways, on to the story. I was chilling in my house playing some Counter-Strike when I hear the door. I hoped it was the good cousins, but it was the trio. In the beginning, we were in the living room talking and telling stories, but after a while they went deeper into the house, also known as my room. First, they annoyed my little brother with his Nintendo Switch. After a while they got bored and went into my room. The first to walk in was the small kid. He immediately sat on my bed that's next to my desk and started watching me play. He asked to play, but I said no as it was too hard for him and he'd die. Then the middle kid walked in and they started arguing over who was going to play first. After a couple matches, they started saying it was their turn, and when I refused, they started picking on each other for fun. At one point, the young one punched the big one who fell into my PC tower and knocked it over. It was very heavy. They got scared and went to tell their parents. The PC was fine, not even a scratch. But then they made up a story about me picking on them and not letting them play, and that I had to let them play. Their mother screamed at me in front of my parents and told me if I made her babies sad again, she'd make sure my computer disappears. At one point, the small kid was playing and got so mad after dying that he punched my keyboard, knocking a piece of it off. And the mother told me off for being a snitch when I told my parents. They eventually left, and I now have to play with a keyboard with a key sunk lower than the rest. I told my mom to buy a lock for my room, and she agreed. So next time, those little jerks ain't even coming in. I think we all have that one corner of the family that's like this, that when they come around, you just kind of go, ugh, here we go. Sounds like mom really needs to rein those kids in though. They can't be destructive like that in someone else's home. We all know that the crap would hit the fan if the shoe were on the other foot here. But oh no, her entitled babies can of course do no wrong. Maybe instead of the lock on your door, you should be worried about the lock on the front door. Just keep them out of the house in general. I walked out of my coworkers' D&D game after they started getting very misogynistic. I, 20-year-old female, have been playing Dungeons & Dragons for a few years now with the same online group. We went on hiatus and I really missed playing, so I started looking for another group. My coworker, 22-year-old male, heard about this and invited me to join a game he just started. It was IRL, which I really wanted to try because I hear it's so much better IRL than online, so I enthusiastically said yes. Well, I showed up to play and the vibes were immediately off. I was the only girl at the table, and definitely the youngest. Everyone else was 22 to 26. They questioned my character choice, saying the group really needed a healer, but I had already chosen a different skill set. For anyone familiar with D&D or fantasy tropes in general, the single girl is always the healer or mother figure, which I wanted to avoid at all costs. After some debate, my coworker shut them down and let me play the character I wanted. I should have walked out right then, but I stuck around to play 2 sessions. They were awful. Every choice I made in character was ignored or questioned. The other players' characters flirted with or harassed my character in every interaction. They barely let me do anything in the game and fought over which character would be able to date mine. In the middle of the second session, one of them asked what my character's bra size was. I stood up and said, "Nope. I'm not gonna take this anymore. You guys have fun," and walked out. Ever since then, they've all been blowing up my phone saying I ruined their game, that I shouldn't have walked out like that. I've blocked most of them because the messages started getting insulting. However, my coworker hasn't really talked to me since, and I feel like I should have tried to resolve the issue in a different way, since I never told the group I was uncomfortable with character romance. Am I the jerk in this situation? Yes, you could have said something before just leaving, and maybe it would have been made a little bit clearer to them that their actions were not at all acceptable, but you shouldn't have to be the one to teach that kind of thing. They're all grown men at this point. A 22 to 26-year-old should already know better than to act that way, regardless of if you're comfortable with it or not. It's just not something you should be doing. You're putting out really weird and creepy vibes, and the fact that they started to insult you after you left kinda shows that you probably made the right decision. I called out my wife for being insanely jealous of my friend's fiance. My wife, 35-year-old female, and I, 36-year-old male, are good friends with another couple. My best friend Matt, 36, and his fiance Rachel, 24. Rachel models and is very attractive. My wife is less conventionally attractive, but I fell in love with her for her humor and good spirit, which I personally find more attractive than good looks. Recently, I've noticed my wife making a lot of comments about Rachel, calling her an airhead and just being kind of mean. When my wife makes these comments in private, I'm able to stand up for Rachel, but when they're made in public, I obviously don't want to embarrass my wife by calling her out. My wife and I went on a trip with Matt and Rachel last week, which we'd been planning for a while and really looking forward to. At dinner one night, my wife made a really mean comment after we started talking about the economy. She remarked, "Don't worry, Rachel, you can join in the conversation once the smart people are done." She was the only one who laughed. I was completely embarrassed, and once we were alone, I told my wife that she'd been really rude, and I was ashamed of her. I told her she needs to stop making nasty comments, and she agreed. However, the next night we all went out to a bar. Rachel was getting a lot of attention from guys there who were sending over drinks. My wife was looking visibly annoyed that she wasn't receiving the same attention, so I tried to lift her spirits by paying for all her drinks and making a fuss of her. One guy came over and said that Rachel looked just like Zendaya. My wife let out a massive laugh and said, "Did you mean to say Whoopi Goldberg?" I turned to my wife and straight up said, "You really are jealous, aren't you?" She looked hurt, but didn't have time to respond as Rachel had left the table in tears. I followed Matt and told Rachel directly that I was so sorry for my wife's words and that I was ashamed of her behavior. When I reunited with my wife, she told me that I was horrible for calling her jealous in front of everyone and embarrassing her. I told her straight up that she was jealous of Rachel, as Rachel's more attractive than her. I realize in hindsight it was a very heavy thing to say, and can see why she would be hurt by it. However, I stand by the fact it was said in anger. Since the trip, Matt messaged me to let me know my wife is no longer welcome at their wedding, and that as a couple, himself and Rachel have decided that they aren't interested in our friendship anymore if my wife is around. Rachel feels as if my wife has bullied her, and has even suggested that some of the comments were racially motivated. I'm so humiliated, but my wife still insists that I should have backed her. This sounds more like your wife has issues with herself than with Rachel. Rachel being pretty shouldn't be a big deal to her. First off, she's already married. She shouldn't be jealous that Rachel's getting attention from other guys and she isn't. She has a man who gives her all the attention she needs. At least it sounds like our original poster is pretty good to her. It sounds like she's just lashing out because she's not confident in herself. She may also have a problem with Rachel just because she's so much younger. With there being a 12-year difference between Matt and Rachel, I can see where she could maybe have some issues there. But again, love who you love. If that's who you want to be with, then that's who you want to be with. But for your wife to just take these pot shots at her is just shameful. Honestly, I don't blame you for being embarrassed. Jerk friend thinks it's okay to harass women in the street, so I make him walk home. Earlier today, I was driving my friends back home after we worked out. We passed these two girls walking home, and one of my friends rolls down his window and says, "I like how those watermelons jiggle. How about you give the boys a flash?" I instantly got angry when he said that. I pulled around the corner and told him to get out. He thought I was joking, and I wasn't. So he started arguing. He was saying it was just a joke, and he was messing around. Everyone was on his side, saying it wasn't a big deal. At first he said he wasn't getting out, but then I was gonna snatch him out if he didn't. He finally did with no type of physical engagement. He lived the furthest, but I made him walk the rest of the way. Everyone else was still mad at me. I dropped them all off and went on my way. I called the guy I kicked out to make sure he got home safe, and told him to never say anything like that around me ever again. He apologized, but was still mad because he thought me making him walk was going too far. Am I the jerk? No, I'm sorry. I would have done the same thing. It's not okay. It's not a joke. You just straight up harassed a woman that we were driving past. No way he would have stopped in the street and said that to her. He only said it because he was safely in a car and would soon be away down the street and nothing that she could do about it. It's a jerk move no matter what. Yeah, you can walk home. My wife lied to me about our baby's gender. I, 32-year-old male, and my wife, 25, are expecting our first child. I've reacted in ways I'm now questioning and need outside perspective. Background: my childhood was a tumultuous one. Growing up, I always craved a strong male figure in my life. I never had that bond with my father, and always envisioned having it with a son. My wife was aware of this deep-rooted desire. During her first pregnancy appointments, I was on an essential business trip. These trips, though draining, are critical since I'm the only breadwinner, trying to ensure a different life for my child than I had. In my absence, my wife and her adopted mother attended the checkups. Upon my return, she excitedly told me we were having a boy. We invested emotionally and financially. A blue nursery, boy-themed items, even naming him after my late grandfather. However, a chance remark from her mother disclosed we're having a girl. My wife admitted she knew from the beginning but didn't tell me, thinking she was protecting my feelings. I was devastated, feeling the weight of past hurts and fresh betrayals. In my pain, I cleared out the nursery, and in a moment I regret, told her mother she wasn't welcome at upcoming family events. Seeing her as part of the deceit, I acted out of deep-seated emotions and past traumas. I love my wife and regret my actions, but I feel lost. Am I the jerk for how I responded? Oh, that's a tough situation to be in, buddy. I'm really sorry that that happened. While your wife's intentions were good, she went about this all wrong. Nothing good could come of this. She wanted to give you what you wanted, but at the end of the day, knew that wasn't gonna be possible. You're gonna find out one way or another soon enough. I don't see why she would go and get your hopes up like that just to have it all taken away. I totally understand why you feel upset, and I think you're totally justified in that. At the end of the day, a big level of trust has been breached, and you're not gonna know if what she says is the truth anymore. And given it was something so serious like this, that just makes it worse. I told my friend that her boyfriend is basically paying her to be his girlfriend. Me, 22-year-old male, and my friend, 25-year-old female, used to work in a company and it fell apart, and as a result, she got fired. Today I was with her and a mutual friend eating dinner at a restaurant, and I tried to pay for her part of dinner because I knew she didn't have any money, and she said she can pay for herself and thanked me for being nice. I commented that was interesting since she didn't get any money money because she was jobless. She started talking about her investing in a sugar daddy, and he pays her weekly. I told her, is that a euphemism for being a lady of the night or something? She gasped and called me a jerk, and I told her that's the truth. She got mad and left, and to be honest, I don't think I said something wrong, because as far as I can tell, she's selling her body for money. At the end of the day, that kind of is the transaction that's taking place. Is it something that you should straight up say to her face? Probably not. But she knows what she's doing. She can put whatever spin on it she wants, but that's essentially what it breaks down to. She's just serving one customer instead of many. Entitled parents disown me for not being a doctor. Now they want to live with me after finding out I'm rich. Here's what happened. Subscribe to AmITheA on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. I'm a 37-year-old male. My family comes from and is a long line of doctors. Being a doctor is the only acceptable profession in their eyes, and anything aside from that is met with literal abandonment, which is what happened to me when I turned 17 and told my family I was not going to be a doctor, but going to build an acting career / social media career. YouTube wasn't huge then, and supplement my income with small business endeavors. When I told my family this, they kicked me out, and we subsequently lost contact for 17 years. During that time, they moved to the UK, and my sister became a doctor, and my older brother got into a very competitive stream for surgery, neurosurgery specializing in spinal tumor diagnosis and removal, which he's now finished. We reconnected when COVID hit, and they told me they were moving back to Sydney for lifestyle reasons and because my brother has found a $75,000 a year job. During the last 2 years, they never asked me how my acting career and social media stuff went, and basically assumed I was just slumming it in Sydney. To their credit, they were correct in that I didn't make it big in acting. Maybe the world wasn't ready for a mainstream leading role Indian. Or make it at all. I did, however, make it big as an investment banker, and recently made partner at the bank I work in. This came to a head on Friday when I met them for house shopping. I walked to meet them, and when they asked about my car, I just said I preferred to walk. And they realized the areas they wanted to live, despite being highly paid medical professionals, simply wasn't going to be happening, as the houses cost north of $20 million. When we decided to call it a day and regroup, they suggested going to my place before going out to dinner. When we arrived at my house, they thought I was renting a room and inquired how much rent was. I informed them that I wasn't renting and that this was my house. They lost it, accusing me of lying to them for years and only meeting up to rub their face in my probably illegally gained wealth, and capped it off with they'll be living with me now instead of my oldest brother, since they can't be seen living in a worse house than their son. I laughed at them and reminded them that they bet on my brother and sister, not me, and that they have a better chance of living with my neighbors than they do with me. At that point, they threatened to cut me out of their will, to which I reminded them of the fact that they can't even afford to buy a house in my area, so their will and assets don't really matter to me. Now they're not talking to me, and my brother and sister are saying that I should have been proactive in letting them know of my success. I have a public LinkedIn profile, so they literally never even Googled me. I'm kinda with our original poster on this one. I don't think they're the one that should be proactive in trying to re-establish a relationship here. It's the parents who kinda said to take a hike. He's not just gonna come reaching out saying, hey guys, I made a bunch of money, you want some? No, he did his thing and went on living his best life, which, good for him. That's what he should do. It's only now that they're back around that he's having this stress in his life in the first place. I kinda like what he said in that they backed the wrong horse. They bet on his brother and sister, who didn't quite pay out the way they wanted them to. And now that original poster has actually made a lot of money doing the thing that they thought wasn't going to be successful, they just assume that they're going to be able to move in. Sorry, doesn't work that way. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe. Medical clerk made me stand outside in 104-degree heat, so I staged a mini revolution. This took place during the first summer of lockdown where I live. For some context, my town is basically on the edge of nowhere. We have a medical center for basic stuff, but a full hospital is 30 to 40 minutes in any direction depending on where you choose to go. With that in mind, we get people from a huge surrounding area that go to our town center for tests, simple medical exams, and things like that. Maybe as many as least 50 small communities use our center on a daily basis, so it's constantly busy. The center itself is quite small compared to hospitals in the city. The various clinics and a basic ER take up most of the space, with an area by the front doors for the public to sit in if they're waiting for a ride or someone to visit a doctor. It's that waiting area that is the cause for my story today. One day during the summer of lockdown, I had to go to the medical center for tests. Some things to know about me. I'm challenged with multiple disabilities. I'm legally blind, have significant mobility and balance issues, and a rather severe heart condition. As such, I use a walking frame and travel using the city's provided disabled transports. That particular day, I had finished my tests early and had about 45 minutes to wait until my transport was scheduled to return to pick me up. I figured, no problem. I'll just sit in the waiting area. And, well, wait. I shuffled over to the seats with my walker plainly evident and was confronted by a new sign. Staff only. Say what now? I looked around at all the empty seats and vacant tables and turned to the clerks at the entrance. Can I please have a seat in the waiting area until my transport comes back?
No, it's for staff only. You need to wait outside.
I can't stand for 45 minutes waiting for my transport, gesturing to my plainly apparent walking frame that I was clearly leaning heavily on.
Not my problem. There are benches to sit on outside.
The benches are full, and we're supposed to be social distancing, not cuddling up to random strangers on a park bench.
If you want, I suppose I could let you take a wheelchair out and sit in that.
And how am I to manage a wheelchair and my walking frame at the same time?
Again, not my problem. If you want, you can call center management when you get home. Are we done here?
I guess we are done, huh? And I went outside to find a spot to wait. Well, I stood outside for the 45 minutes while the sun beat down on what turned out to be a 104-degree Fahrenheit day. As I stood there, I noticed that there was a line of patients steadily growing longer, also standing outside in the heat, waiting to be let into the building. Some looked fit, but let's face it, nobody comes to a medical center when they feel 100% healthy. Most of them looked quite ill, and some were looking pretty faint by the time they got through the doors. By the time my transport arrived, I was badly sunburned, thirsty as all heck, exhausted, and feeling more than a bit faint myself. My driver was shocked and insisted on walking me to my front door when he got me home to make sure I was okay. Shout out to all the transport drivers out there. You guys rock. The rest of the day was a complete loss. I spent it drinking water, sleeping, and nursing the burns on my shoulders and face. I was a complete mess. The next day, however, I was ticked. I had plenty of time to recover and to think, and I kept coming back to that line of patients standing in the heat. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. The words the clerk said so smugly,
"You can call center management when you get home if you want,"
danced through my sun-baked brain like a mantra. I called center management. What followed was a half-hour conversation with the sweetest lady. She was so nice and so upset when I told her all that went on the day before. She was especially concerned when she found out about the line of people waiting outside on what turned out to be the hottest day we had that summer. After our talk, the manager promised to look into it and get back to me. Now, normally that's sort of a brush off, right? Not so with this lady. 2 days later, she called me back. Turned out she'd spent the day before sitting at the clerk's desk observing things that went on. Things like patients being forced to stand in the rain waiting to get into the center, patients being poorly spoken to by the same clerk. And the cherry on top, at one point a tiny elderly lady tried to sit down in the waiting area, and the same clerk ran over and rudely shoved her aside and snapped,
"Staff only,"
with her boss sitting right there. The manager went over, tore down the signs, apologized to the lady, and helped her to a seat, then took the clerk to her office for a chat. The results? The center was immediately restructured. Staff were moved into an unused gift shop. The waiting room was returned to the public, and, best of all, the registry desks were moved, so patients no longer had to stand outside waiting to get into the building. I never saw that clerk there again. I know this isn't as exciting as a lot of stories on here, but knowing I was part of making things so much better for so many still makes me happy. Dang it, I'm proud of my mini coup d'etat. Vive la résistance! And all that crap. Alright, so while I'm glad that everything worked out for the better and that everything went according to our original poster's plan, there are some things I'd like to point out here. As someone who worked in retail during the pandemic, I can tell you that it was absolute chaos. Now, this being a medical center, they should have been more on top of things. You're saying this was during the summer, so we'd been in lockdown for a couple months. Procedure should have been established. It looks like you coming in and making a fuss made them take the steps they needed to get it where it needed to be. But I can tell you that when lockdown first hit a lot of places, this was the case. Everywhere was scrambling just to try to find something to make it work. You have people in your face, everyone mad that they gotta wait in a line and can't do what they need to do. It was very tough on anyone in customer service. And I know this isn't specifically customer service, but it's the same kind of idea. You're there helping the public, and they have a certain expectation when they walk up to your front door. Obviously, the pandemic made it that you couldn't meet a lot of your customers' needs. I know a lot of places were trying to do the best they could. It sounds like this place maybe wasn't quite up to par, but I know what this staff member had to go through during the pandemic, and them being a little snappy is understandable. Should everything have already been repurposed and the waiting room made available to everyone? Yes. Should she have been nicer about everything? Yes. But it was a stressful time for everyone. Some jerk behavior during the pandemic is forgiven. Just to be clear though, I'm not saying she was right in any way. Like I said, this all should have been thought out way before now. All I'm saying is, from their perspective, it was a tough time. My manager tells me if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. So I make sure to document everything going forward. My manager at work is one of those people that absolutely has to be in control. Even when you're exceeding every scorecard measure, keeping your head down, not putting a toe out of line, she still asks you to come to a meeting room for some minor issue or another. Recently, she pulled me into a meeting to discuss being late for work. Protocol is to call in, say we'll be late, then submit a schedule adjustment request when we arrive. She accused me of not calling in or submitting a request, but I was able to prove that I did. Only instead of leaving it at that, she insisted I now needed to call her and explain why I was late. That's not the process, I told her, and she said she's making a new one. So now I call her at 6 a.m. on her day off to let her know if I'm gonna be late. She also had a meeting with me because my scorecard for a stat was 99 out of 100, with a target of 50. She had to point out the 1 out of 100 I missed. She also did the same for a handling time issue, where I'm hitting an average of 600 seconds with a target of 1500. She needed to tell me about a call I took too long on. Suffice to say, complaints have been raised to her manager, following an incident where she was asked to follow up on something for me and claimed if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. I've been asking for everything in writing and repeat that mantra back to her when she claims to have told me something. Last week, she asked for me to see her after my call. I walked over and she wasn't there, so went back to my desk. She asked me why I didn't stick around, and I reminded her of the time she put in writing that I wasn't to spend any more than 1 minute waiting for her if she asked to see me, and was to go back to my desk to take calls, not wasting time. She asked me to come over again, and when I did, she wasn't there. This repeated twice more before my shift was over. Every time I documented, logged out at 14:35 p.m., came to your desk, you were not there, spent 45 seconds waiting, returned to desk and took another call at 14:38 p.m. In chat, she messages me to ask what time I finish. I tell her it was 2 minutes prior, and she says we can catch up now. I tell her that my shift is over and ask if she'll approve an overtime pay for an out-of-hours meeting. She tells me not to be silly and it'll just take 10 minutes. I refuse and say if I don't get paid, we can do it tomorrow when I'm being paid. She's typing, then not, then typing, then not, choosing her words. I know she's angry at being challenged, and she decided to employ one of the tactics she used when she managed a team for a company where this was standard practice. Okay, well, if you'd like to go home now, I can always make it a formal meeting. A formal meeting where I work is code for a meeting with HR for misconduct and repeated issues, documented on your record. She thinks she's won. Not a problem. Make a formal meeting, ensure I have 24 hours notice, send a formal invite, and I'll bring a support person with me. I log out and leave, but not before grabbing screenshots and saving a copy of the chat logs. Next day, she's called my bluff and has a meeting scheduled. I send it to my union rep and she comes in on the day. HR sits down with us and opens with,
So, we're here today to discuss some concerns. Your team leader asked you to attend an off-the-cuff catch-up 3 times, and for some reason you refused.
I quickly clarify what actually happened. My manager claims otherwise, and I repeat her mantra. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Then I supply receipts. Her demands to put things in writing, her chat, my timestamps, my call logs, and her message to me afterwards. My union rep stares at the two of them with a small smile and asks,
So, do you maintain the position that employees should attend meetings unpaid and that misconduct investigations are a good use of resources if they refuse?
HR said there may have been a miscommunication and that I could return to work. I have it put in writing that I'm not accused of any misconduct and have been cleared of any false accusations, with nothing documented on my staff file. Yesterday, my team was advised that our team leader had decided to pursue opportunities outside of the company and that we're getting a new manager. Thank God that jerk is gone. No, you handled this exactly like you should. If she wants to be petty, oh boy can we be petty. This is your job on the line. She thinks you're not gonna take these kind of steps? Of course you are. You have to protect yourself from her shenanigans. If she's gonna be coming at you for missing 1% on something, then she better be pretty perfect herself. Cause you know if there's one slip up, you're gonna be all over it. I wouldn't be letting her get away with this kind of crap too. You're a good worker. You work hard and you do an excellent job. She wants to be coming at you over petty stuff like this. Let's put her under the microscope. See if she's really doing her job the best she can. Entitled company really doesn't seem to understand what belongs to them and what belongs to their employees. A friend of mine in a semiconductor manufacturing company was one of the hotshot marketing and application engineers. On his own, he put together a series of seminars to show prospective users and customers the benefits of using a bunch of the company's integrated circuits in their designs. He went on to make short half-hour videos that could be viewed online. The company signed a contract with him that stated they were his property. The company was acquired by a megacore, and their legal people evidently signed off on his contract as well. He was a big man, 6'2", 230 pounds, and in his late 50s. Also had a condition that caused a considerable amount of joint pain. His job required him to fly at least once a month, but because of the frequency, he could upgrade to business class or better, and the extra room helped him with the pain of traveling. The company AA card was used for all travel, and his new 30-year-old manager decided that the company owned his frequent flyer miles, and he couldn't use them to upgrade. This got rather heated, and the manager wouldn't back down. So the company offered early retirement to certain people over 59, who'd been with them for more than X years. My friend stepped up and got a bonus, and 2 days before the end, deleted all the videos. And he gave them a copy of the contract reminding them that they were his property, also stating that the company couldn't restore them from backups and use them. Several months later, he ended up contracting for his former company, introducing his online videos and answering questions afterwards. I'm sure he was very happy with this arrangement. No travel, no boss hassles, and a nice check for each time he did it. Yeah, sounds like our original poster might have gotten a pretty sweet deal out the other end of this. The company clearly overstepped their bounds. It was in a contract that those videos belonged to the person in question. Just because a company buys another company doesn't mean those videos all of a sudden become yours. The original company never owned them to begin with, so you can't have bought them from them. Also, trying to claim personal air miles seems super petty. Unfortunately, this is probably the case when a lot of places get taken over by a larger corporation. They start trying to cut costs and save things everywhere, and it just leaves a sour taste in all of the employees' mouths. I thought I was over my food poisoning, but it came back with a vengeance at the worst time. I am the dumbest person alive. Last week, I apparently ate something that was contaminated. Spent 8 hours on Thursday, starting at 3 a.m., puking out my digestive system about 3 to 4 times every hour. Slept on the bathroom floor when I could. It really sucked. Well, today's Tuesday. I figure surely by now, especially since I haven't thrown up since Thursday morning, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Sure, my stomach's been a little upset, but that's anxiety about getting sick again. What better way to celebrate my victory, I decided, than a big bowl of chocolate cereal in the car on the way to class while my dad drives. Ha ha ha! My digestive system laughs. You fool! And yes, I am the fool. 40 minutes before my first exam of the day starts, and my stomach is trying to escape from its mortal flesh prison. I've learned my lesson. I'm never eating food again. I wish I was never born. Okay, this one isn't really an am I the jerk situation. This one's just kind of funny. Depending on what it is you ate, it can definitely take a few days to get everything out of there. And no, it is not a fun process along the way. If you're still feeling even a little queasy or uncomfortable, don't take any risks. Stay home, where you have quick access to a toilet. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot you can do in that situation except just ride it out. I think food poisoning is something that everyone goes through at least once. Sometimes you know what did it. Sometimes you know it's coming as soon as you start eating that dish. Other times, it comes out of nowhere and you're just not expecting it. You know you've been KO'd for a couple days. Take an extra couple days, just to be safe. Otherwise, things can get really uncomfortable in a place where you don't want to be uncomfortable.
My supervisor threatens to fire me for doing my job, so I throw him under the bus and get him replaced by me. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. First, some background. I work for a communications company. We primarily sell internet-based all-in-one communication solutions for businesses. I'm in the software development department working as a software tester currently. I've been with the company a long time, have worked my way up from phone support, and have a ton of knowledge about the company, including policy and culture. I also have a relative who's worked in HR for many years. I had been working as a software tester for about 2 years doing manual testing. Our team was fairly unsupervised as we didn't really have a manager, but the company was expanding quickly, so they hired us a manager. Enter Jay the Jerk. At first, things were fine. He was just learning the company. However, it was odd. He never asked anyone for any information. He just said he'd do his own research, and spent the first month online reading stuff. Not sure what that taught him about our company specifically, though. After the first month, he hit the ground running. He immediately started creating automation tests, adding to the existing testing code, and creating stupid rules that made no sense. He broke tons of crap and took credit for work that wasn't his. Everyone hated him. For the most part, we all ignored him. As of this point, no one has specifically said he was our manager. He was just here to help provide direction. Fast forward a few months and everyone on the team wants to quit. No one can stand him. He and I butt heads more so than others, because I know he's wrong, and I make my decisions based on the best interests of the customers. He hated that I never get in trouble, but I was hand-selected for the position by our CIO. He knows how hard I work. Well, Jay keeps trying to get me in trouble. He finally succeeds. I get a write-up from him that is my final warning. I'd never been written up before. I talk to my HR family member, review the company handbook, and then I go to HR with my write-up. I fight it and I win. I get a warning instead. Jay is livid. He gives me the stink eye for months to follow. Fast forward again and he's still after me, but I have a family emergency come up. I have to move out of town. I apply to work from home and my request is granted. Jay can't stand it. He tries to fight it and convince the company not to let me. However, he's not high enough up the chain to override my approval from a C-level manager. He's running out of time to get me fired. I'm in the office working late daily planning for my move and finishing up some of my work to allow time for the move. One of the company's policies for our department is that everyone gets to work from home 1 day a week. You get to pick as long as it isn't Monday or Friday. People often use this to work from home when sick. Well, I have a medical condition that sometimes require I take medicine that means I can't drive a car. I emailed the office and let them know I was going to work from home due to being sick. I work for about 30 minutes. Then Jay sends me a message. He tells me that employees are not allowed to pick when they work from home, and I need to take the day off and use paid time off.
I inform him that I've already worked part of the day and can't take paid time off. He insists that I stop working immediately, so I do. I then contact HR because I know he's coming after me. I confirm that as a salaried employee, if I work at all in a day, I cannot be required to take PTO. HR confirms. I forward the email to Jay. Once again, I've won the game, and he's so ticked I can see steam coming out of his ears every time he looks at me. The next day, I'm back to work. Jay sends me an email with a final write-up with a recommendation for termination because I took an unauthorized day off. Excuse me? I immediately forward his email to HR with proof he told me to take the day off, a screenshot of all the conversations I had with him about it, and proof I forwarded the previous HR decision to him. In the email, I also concluded that I was filing a formal complaint against him for a hostile workplace, targeting, bullying, retaliating, and a violation of my ADA rights. The response is swift, sweet, and awesome. I'm immediately notified by Jay's boss that moving forward, I report directly to him. My write-up had been torn up, and I can start working from home immediately, prior to my move. Jay's demoted from being the manager of the team. He's super ticked. Within 2 weeks, they demote him from being the manager of his other team, and then let him go within the month. Prior to his being fired, I got promoted up a level. I made sure to mention it often in our group chat channels. After I showed his true colors to management, he began treating everyone else worse, as I was now off limits. Complaints rolled in so much, they had to let him go. Serves the jerk right. This manager really seemed to have it in for our original poster for what seemed like no reason at all. Because our original poster was a good worker and everyone liked him, you want to get him fired? How does that make any sense? And to try and pull a sneaky move like that, telling you to take the day off and then report you for taking said day off, was bound to backfire. No one else is going to see that as anything other than a spiteful move, especially your boss. Entitled mother blames me for ruining her kid's Christmas. I got a seasonal promotion at a local game shop and was told I ruined their child's holiday. So with the PS5s and Xbox Series being the newest consoles, we sold out of the 10 we got on Black Friday within 15 minutes of opening, and it was sporadic when we got more. December 11th, maybe 5 minutes before I was supposed to clock out, I was told we were going live with sales of limited numbers. No holding. We were allowed to text someone that was looking for one about them going live, but that's about it. So I ended up staying an extra hour and we sold out again. So no more until we get a new shipment, with the added news of none coming until February or March. Last night, a woman came in and was asking about games we had in stock, which isn't much due to the holidays. So we offered to print a list, and let's just say she was a bit difficult. So not only did she not take said list, she got mad because I scanned every game case she brought up only to tell her it's not in stock. Why are there cases on the wall then if it's not in stock? That makes no sense to keep them up there. I agree. However, my boss's boss wants us to keep all the cases up. If you'd like, we can order them on the store website and have them shipped to your home. Another option is that I can check other stores. Will it be at my home for Christmas? I can't guarantee that. I can check other stores. How far would you have to drive? About 30 minutes for Town A and 45 for Town B. They both have 2 of the games you want in stock. That's too far. I have other things to do. You can have it shipped to your home, but there's no guarantee that it'll be there by Christmas. Why have them shipped if there's no guarantee? You can't just go pick them up for me? I'm pretty sure that's against company policy. If you want, I can sell you a gift card in place of the games. That way after Christmas, whoever the games are for can come in and pick out the games they want. Fine, let's do that. At least this way I can tell my kitty you were the one that ruined their Christmas. Do you have an account with us? After she left, I went back to put the stack of games she brought up, only to find out that the jerk had also messed up the shirts and collectibles. This is just one of those classic entitled mothers. Honestly, December 11th is kinda waiting late for Christmas stuff, especially if you want to have it shipped. There's always delays at that time of year. You need to kinda be out ahead of the game. Our original poster did offer every other option they could. It's not their fault that none of those are good choices for you. Maybe next time, think ahead. My older sister ran away from her marriage, so I told her husband exactly where she was. This happened 2 years ago, and I still feel guilty over it, so I thought I would post it here to see if I was the jerk or not. Our mom died when my sister was 19 and I was 10, so she practically raised me. Our dad left when I was a baby. She married her husband when she was 22, and I lived with them until I went to university. Her husband did a lot for us, including making sure my sister could finish her degree, which she had to drop out of when our parents died to look after me. He has one major flaw though, which is that he's a workaholic. He got really bad when his father announced he was going to retire soon, and he started actively grooming my brother-in-law to take over their family business. This meant my brother-in-law had to travel a lot more for client meetings. My sister hated it, but sucked it up mostly. When my sister was pregnant, she called him while he was abroad and begged him to come back home because she was experiencing some cramping and she was scared something was wrong. He basically told her that everything would be fine and he'd be home in a few days. It got worse and she tried to call him again, but his phone was switched off. She ended up calling me in tears because she was bleeding and he wasn't answering. I was away at university at the time, and it took me a few hours to get back home. By that time, she was already at the hospital and knew she was miscarrying. My sister ended up packing up her stuff and leaving their marital home after, and swore me to secrecy. She pretty much ghosted him. She still talked to me, and it was obvious she was depressed, and when I tried to convince her to talk to him or to talk to a therapist, she refused to. My brother-in-law was a mess, and after 2 weeks, I ended up telling him where she was because I felt sorry for him, and I was also worried about my sister. Things were really awful between them for a few months, and my sister resented me a lot for telling him where she was initially, but they did eventually manage to work things out. When she first saw me after he made her come home, she said that I had betrayed her and she wouldn't forgive me. I've told this story to a few people, and the general consensus was that I was a jerk because I took the choice away from my sister, and it looked like I was favoring my brother-in-law. So, what's the verdict? This is a bit of a tough situation. I don't think that her husband deserved to just be ghosted like that. He may be a workaholic, but he at least deserves to have a face-to-face conversation. And at the end of the day, she's the one that chose to go back with him. You didn't force her to make that decision, and I hope he didn't either. Maybe you did take away her choice, but I don't feel like you were favoring your brother-in-law. I think you were just giving him what he deserved, which was a face-to-face conversation about what had happened. I can't imagine how he must have been feeling for his child to have been miscarried and his wife to have just disappeared. This may be a controversial opinion, but I think our original poster did the right thing here. Entitled Mother, aka my sister, threw a fit and made her kids cry because I wouldn't take them on vacation with me. A little over 2 years ago, I won a raffle at my job for an all-expense-paid family vacation. It wasn't some super fancy prize to Disneyland or anything crazy like that. It was just a nice 3-day stay at this little beach house in place. It was for 4 people, and I asked around and found out the package deal cost just under $400. Pricey for me, but not so much for the older and more experienced coworkers I have. I of course asked my boyfriend at the time to go, but he couldn't take off school. I wanted to take my single friends and make it a girls trip type deal, but they either couldn't because of work or other IRL responsibilities at the time, which I was sad about but understood. Since that plan was a bust, I decided to see if my sister and her 2 little kids wanted to come. I figured they'd enjoy it and so would my sister, and I didn't want to waste the tickets. Well, I went down to visit my family that weekend, intent on asking sis if they'd want to come. But the longer I was there, the more I hated the idea. By the time I was packing up to go home, I knew I wasn't inviting them. I love my niece and nephew, but they were super bratty back then, because my sister never disciplines them, ever. They're doing better these days. I love them, but she lets them get into everything and never watches them unless someone, either me or our mom, yells at her to get off her butt and watch them. Visiting is always a chore, because I end up watching them to give our mom a break. It's pathetic. And every time I visit, my sis dumped them on me the entire time, like usual. And by that point, I knew if they came, it would turn into me babysitting them while she had a vacation. So I didn't mention the trip or vacation and just said goodbye before leaving. Next day, I called my good friend Megan cause she has 2 kids, older than sis's kids and very well behaved. and she's a single working mom who I figured could use the vacay. I asked if she would be free for XYZ days, and she was like, yeah. So I offered to invite her along with me on this vacay if she would pay for gas to get us all to and from there, while I would pay for the food for us to and from there. And she happily agreed. We went and had a blast. I got a pretty good tan, we ate lots of buffet food, swam at the beach, and did fun family, kid-friendly type activities all weekend before coming back. Her kids are super sweet, and it didn't feel like I was babysitting at all, even when I was helping Megan with them. After I got home, I posted some pics I took. Nothing in your face, just a couple of cute ones of me and us on the beach. And before lunch even rolled around on my first day back at work, sis was blowing up my phone. I knew ignoring her calls would just prolong the inevitable, so I answered. I barely got past my hey before she was asking how the heck I could afford a vacation. I told her it was a raffle prize. She asked who won, me or my friend, and I said me. I don't enjoy lying. It stresses me out. She proceeded to flip her lid, demanding to know why I hadn't invited her. I was honest and said I didn't want to end up babysitting her kids for my entire vacation. She got mad and called me a jerk, then said I knew she needed a vacation, and then hung up on me before I could reply. I just sighed and continued working. Later, while I was leaving work, our mom called me asking why I'd promised my niece and nephew I'd take them on a vacation. I said I never told them I would. I hadn't even spoken to them since the last time I visited. Turns out, sis told them we were all supposed to go on a beach vacation together, but I ruined it and now they didn't get to go. So niece and nephew sobbed all day. It took our mom ages to get them to stop crying long enough to explain what was wrong. I told my mom my side and she said I was mean to not invite my sister and niece and nephew. But she dropped it after I said I told her I didn't invite them because I didn't feel like babysitting my whole vacation. My mom also tore into sis for lying to her and also hurting her kids' feelings like that, getting their hopes up about a vacation and then dashing them by saying I ruined it and they couldn't go. I wasn't there, but mom said sis threw a huge fit and basically trash talked me all afternoon. The only thing I really felt bad about was my sister getting niece and nephew's hopes up like that. That's the exact reason I'd never said anything to them. But to cheer them up, I took them the next weekend to a kid's play place. They're always on their best behavior with me because they know I don't play like their mom and I will turn my car around and take them home if they're bratty when they're with me. So they got to eat pizza, play games, and climb this huge indoor jungle gym thing, and even ride a couple kiddie rides. I also sat down with them while they ate and explained that the trip I went on was for me and my friend, and that they wouldn't have liked it because it got so hot and sweaty. They handled it very well. No tears or anything. Much better than my entitled sister. While I can understand why your sister might be a little upset at getting left out of this, why she would go ahead and get the kids' hopes up just to hurt them like that is beyond me. It's almost like she just wants them to suffer too, or is trying to use them to guilt you into a new vacation or something. Either way, it's a really petty move where she's playing with her child's emotions for no reason. There's nothing to gain out of this situation. Maybe she gets the hint to try and be a more attentive mother from now on. Other people don't want to have to be raising your kids. I told my wife it's her job to babysit the kids. I, 35-year-old male, have been married to my wife, 32-year-old female, for 7 years. We have 2 children together, 6-year-old male and 3-year-old female. She takes care of the house and babysits the kids most of the time because she's a stay-at-home mom. But we evenly split chores and childcare on weekends when I get home from work. We moved to her home state from mine because she wanted to be closer to her parents and her childhood friends. Now, she's a lot more social than I am. She goes on 3 to 4 girls' trips a year. I have no issues with that, and I'm happy to babysit the kids full-time in her absence. I'm more of a homebody anyway, so I usually like to just paint in the spare room or play video games every once in a while instead of traveling out of state. I don't really take time off from work unless we do something as a family. For the past 3 to 4 months, I was very busy on a major project at work. I've been working 60 hours a week, and frankly, I'm exhausted with the stress. So when the project was finally coming to an end, I told my wife I'm taking a day off, and I won't be doing any work around the house. Of course, I'd still clean up after myself, but I didn't want to do any chores or childcare on that one day. I told her that 2 weeks in advance, and she agreed. I also reminded her 3 days before. However, when that day came, my wife forgot about our agreement. I was in the painting room and my wife interrupted me, telling me she needed me to give our daughter a bath because she spilt milk all over herself and couldn't do it because she had to wash the dishes. It was annoying, but whatever, things happen. Later on, when I was playing video games, my wife tells me our son needs help with his math homework. I ask her why she can't help him herself, and she said it's because she has some work to do. This work was actually her best friend coming over and chatting for an hour. This really ticked me off. So after I helped my son and the best friend left, I told my wife I'm leaving the house for 4 to 5 hours. She asked me where I was going. I told her I'm just going to chill in the park and do whatever. But then she said she needs me to help out with the chores and with the kids. I told her that today was my day off from all work, including housework, and it's her job to babysit the kids on this day. Then I left the house. When I came back, she was acting cold and called me a jerk for just abandoning her and the kids. I think she's being dramatic, but when I spoke to my sister, she said parenting's a 24/7 job. So am I the jerk? I don't know. It sounds like you've been working pretty hard and deserve to just have one day off. You were willing to compromise when things came up, you gave your daughter a bath when needed. Obviously, you're still willing to jump in when you have to. But for her to leave you to do stuff while she had her friend over, that doesn't really feel right. Like you said, you've been working for the past 3 to 4 months, 60 hours plus a week. That is enough to add up for anybody. At the same time, if we flip it and look at the wife's situation, she's had to look after the kids all this time when you've been at work. Finally having you home for a full day might be kind of like a vacation for her too, because she can actually get some help with the things around the house, and maybe even squeeze in a little bit of time with a friend. I don't know, this is one where I can really see it from both sides. At the end of the day, like your sister said, parenting is a 24/7 job. Your wife has been handling that for the most part. Maybe you just need to jump in just a little bit. My cheating wife leaves me while I'm on deployed for a toxic bad boy, then comes crawling back to me with 2 kids. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. So I'm in the army and I was married. I was approaching my first deployment to Iraq. It was very stressful and it had my wife wanting me to find a way to stay and not deploy. Obvious things any wife would try to talk about. Anyways, so we have no kids, but both want them. So we talk about getting out of debt while I'm gone. She talks to her best friend back home in another state where we're both from. Her friend agrees to let her move in and charge a modest $300 in rent so that we can both get out of debt and start a family when I come back. A plan I was actually very pleased with. I deploy and she's there crying her eyes out, saying she'll miss me and loves me and we'll start a family when I get back. Fast forward 2 months. She starts acting distant, not wanting to talk much on our scheduled calls or text back 1 or 2 word answers. We've been together 6 years. She's never at a loss for words. Anyways, one day she says she needs some space. She asked someone who's 10,000 miles away for space. I ask why she says she needs space. She says she wants to find herself. So I remember back when we lived at home, she had a guy who was always being borderline inappropriate. I'm not a very jealous person, and I trust her. So I start seeing said guy in on basically all of her pictures she posts with a group. Every time he's in the picture. Everyone else changes, but never him. So for the first time, I'm very jealous and uneasy about everything. I clone her phone so I receive every text she receives as well as every text she sends. I'll never forget the first text I saw after cloning her phone. "Hey babe, I'll see you after work. Want me to save you any of my leftovers?" From her to him. It destroyed me. I lost 35 pounds in a week. I didn't eat or sleep. I stared at the phone, watching every conversation, watching them talk about trying to have a baby. It was literally everything a married person fears. I ask her if she's seeing someone, and she says no, she isn't. She's taking care of herself and she loves me, blah blah blah. I don't say anything about receiving her texts for 2 months. Over this time, she finally admits to cheating, and that he's so much better than me at sex, treating her right, and he does what she wants. During this time, she pays our debt off, gets tattoos with him, matching I love you tattoos, goes to shows with him, buying clothes, everything, with the money that I'm making. So this is where I decided to get some revenge. I put a freeze on the account for a month. In that time, I change every password to every account to things that she won't guess. Mostly army jargon slang terms. I block her on Facebook and my phone. so she has no way to contact me. She lost her car to repo a few months later, got kicked out of her place, and had to sell her prized shoes and purses just to stay alive. I then found out she got a job at her old restaurant, so I post all the text conversations I have with her and the guy talking about having babies that have timestamps on it, as well as post conversations we had with the matching timestamps, showing all of our friends what she had done. I then have friends call and complain at her job constantly on both him and her. They work at a restaurant, so I also have friends dine and dash. They both get fired. So she tries to call my command and tell them that I'm abandoning her, and she can't provide for herself. My commander knows what's going on. He does nothing, because he had something similar happen. Then, about a month before I come back, she calls me from another number to tell me she's pregnant with his kid. Mind you, I'm still gone, so we can't get divorced yet. She moved away with him, 10 hours from me, April 24th, 2018. She calls me 5 months pregnant, crying uncontrollably, asking me where she should go. Apparently, they had a massive fight and she told him she's leaving. She says she doesn't know where to go, and I simply say, sorry, not my problem anymore. Fast forward to January of this year. She calls me from a mutual friend's phone. He hit me. I don't know what to do. Maybe you don't cheat on your husband when he's deployed for some guy who talks a big game. Well, I guess you're happy about this. No, but I'm glad I'm not the bad guy in this story. And then the next month, he's cheating on me with 2 girls. I'm sorry. I regret everything I did. I screwed it all up. Yeah, you did. All in all, this woman destroyed my life and put me into a deep depression I'm still dealing with. But I do feel a little better having proof that I wasn't the problem. To think if this happened even 10 or 5 years ago, I would have come back to an empty bank account, an empty house, as well as seeing my then wife pregnant with another man's baby. She actually hit me up yesterday to ask for some money to help cover rent. I don't understand how you can screw someone over like that and then expect them to help you. Why would you think this person would do anything to try and help? What you did is not something that's forgiven easily. You made your bed. You have to lie in it. You had something good and you chose to throw it away. You can make all the arguments in the world of being lonely while he's on deployment or whatever, but you made that decision. You have to deal with the consequences now. There's no backpedaling. This happened several years ago. I was working at a small medical supply company as the IT manager. Business was bad and eventually the IT department had to downsize to just me. During this time, they brought in a new CFO that I had to report directly to. Let's call her Pam. Pam had zero knowledge of IT and how things worked. Her motto was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. PC or server life cycles didn't exist. We don't have to pay for licensing to keep our firewall updated. It's working just fine now. I went from having an annual budget to a wish list, which she would deny everything I asked for. The couple that owned the company were real pieces of work too. One time we had a quarterly meeting, and people were asking about how secure their jobs were. The owners said that nobody was getting laid off and that all of our jobs were secure. This was at 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. The very next morning at 9 a.m., they laid off 6 people. At noon, one of the owners showed up to show off the Escalade that he had just purchased that morning. During the first 6 months that Pam was there, she started firing everyone that worked for the old CFO and replaced them with her friends and family. 3 of her bridesmaids from her wedding a few years prior got hired to replace those that she fired. I knew I was on borrowed time. After she had been there 9 months, I was the only one left out of what had been a dozen people that worked for the old CFO. I knew my time was running out. I had been looking for work, but the 2009 crash had just happened, and the job market in my area went south quickly. Sure enough, she called me into HR and blindsided me with an entirely trumped up charge that she claimed happened the day before. I was working with the VP of sales on a project that entire day, so I had a witness. I asked to bring him in since my boss was lying, and was told, this is not about him, this is about you. Remember kids, HR is there to protect the business, not do what is right or legal in some cases. Needless to say, I knew my days were numbered. The next morning, I get introduced introduced to an IT expert who just happens to be Pam's 21-year-old nephew. He was to shadow me and evaluate everything that I did to see if we could streamline any processes. In other words, they wanted me to train him to do my job. I quickly learned that this kid had absolutely no knowledge of IT. He's the kid people think is an IT expert because he can hook up a PlayStation to a TV. He didn't even know how to join a PC to a domain. So I knew what had to be done. The inventory, billing, shipping, and receiving were all run by scripts that I created on the server. They were all run using the domain admin account. I raised quite a fuss about giving him the domain admin account in front of Pam and him. I then loudly proclaimed that I was going to change the password to it, since you can't have people who don't work for the company have admin access to our network. I was overruled and was told to give it to him. I complied, but I also showed him multiple times how to change passwords on the domain. I even had him write it down to make sure that he could do it. I really stressed the importance of changing the admin password and deleting his local account the second he's no longer consulting with us. I showed him a few things that day, but nothing in regards to what really made the company run. There wasn't enough time in a year to bring this kid up to speed on how to run that place due to his complete ignorance of IT. I come into work the next day, and sure enough, I was let go because her nephew had found my skills lacking in many areas. I collect my last paycheck and head home. The next morning, I get a call from the CFO and owners. Apparently, her nephew wasn't quite up to speed on everything we did there, and she was graciously offering to pay me my regular salary to come in as a consultant and get her nephew up to speed on the IT infrastructure. I told her that I was now an independent contractor, and if she wanted my services, I was going to charge her $200 per hour with a 250-hour minimum. At that point, she told me she was going to call the police and have me arrested for what I did if I didn't come in and fix everything. My response was, just so we're clear, you fired me, replaced me with a completely unqualified idiot, and now you're threatening to call the cops on me if I don't come in and fix what he did? I'll hold. Please, call the cops and let me know what they say. She started cursing at me and hung up the phone. Turns out her nephew did actually learn something from me. He changed the admin password after I had left. The one that ran all the scripts for inventory, billing, shipping, and ordering. According to some of my coworkers, the place was dead in the water for several days until they could get a real consultant in to go through the documentation that I had created and fix the issue. The nephew was immediately fired and Pam was gone within a month. This is a perfect example of why you don't just give the job to family members. While it might be nice to get them a position, at the end of the day, they're probably not as qualified as they should be. Whenever it's family, people tend to pull some strings. IT at a company is not one of those areas where you want to be lacking in your expertise. When something goes seriously wrong, you need someone who knows what they're doing and can do it quickly, not your 21-year-old nephew. My father seems to think I'm obligated to spend the holidays with him. I was raised by a single father with whom I rarely saw eye to eye. He tried to mold me into his views of traditional masculinity, the good and the bad. He'd praise me when I excelled in certain roles, like a handyman or football player, but then be dismissive over crying or being bullied at school. He took his role as a disciplinary figure very seriously, even during the holiday season. My dad always throws a party for our family every Thanksgiving and Christmas. He provides great food, and some of my relatives are pretty decent. However, my dad is a terrible host. He had everyone come over, including people who were toxic to be around. I swear, every year there's always some fight about the pettiest thing.
All the vegans get is a salad. The kids shouldn't watch anything with Santa in it. A gift card? You couldn't have just sent me money.
It's like they're so obsessed with making everything perfect that anything not going their way is unacceptable. On top of that, my dad pretty much makes the parties all about him. He tries to micromanage a lot of activities, from the movies we'd watch to whatever we made conversation about. The worst was when he'd brag about me into sounding like he molded me into his views of traditional masculinity. He'd brag about how I was the MVP in youth football, even though I hated it, or that I kicked butt in martial arts, even though that's not what it was about, nor why I enjoyed it. When I mention achievements I'm actually proud of, like taking up creative writing or a new book I'm reading, he'll pay no heed. My dad says he's happy I have a girlfriend, but also that he's glad I didn't turn out LGBT. As far as gifts go, he'd only get me things that he'd approve of, whether I wanted them or not. New boxing gloves or clay pigeons? Heck yeah. A PS4 or 3DS? Could be worse. A journal or the entire Harry Potter book series? No, I won't do that to you. Basically, I've come to associate the holidays with my dad asserting more dominance than usual, and being forced to interact with toxic family members. Fortunately for me, my girlfriend's dad invited me to spend both Thanksgiving and Christmas with them. Finally, I think I'll get to enjoy myself for a change. Then, earlier today, my dad called asking me when I'm coming over for Thanksgiving. I told him I already said I wasn't coming, and that I'd be going to my girlfriend's place. He said things like, "You always spend the holidays with your old man," or "Your cousins like seeing you, you know." My cousins have stopped coming over for the holidays for years. I tried arguing that inviting family over might not be a good idea anyway. This was during the time of the global crisis. People like my grandma or Uncle Devin were at higher risk. He called BS on that, since "You don't seem to be worried about giving it to your girlfriend." I've tested negative, and nobody coming over is at high risk. Then my dad went on this tirade. "Oh, I see how it really is. You think I'm a terrible father, right? You'd rather throw me and your whole family under the bus when all we want is to spend the holidays with you. I'm offering you free food and family time, but you'd rather throw it down the drain than be grateful I'm even allowing you into my home. You're welcome, by the way." I've told my dad many times how bad he makes me feel, about myself or even just in general. He'd argue, "I gave you everything you needed to survive in this tough world. If I made you feel that bad, how'd you get so good at karate? You wouldn't know how to get a girlfriend if it weren't for me." In other words, my feelings are invalid because I still succeeded in some aspects of my life. Seeing as we weren't getting anywhere, I hung up. I hate it when my dad guilt trips me like this, because as much as everyone's told me he's wrong, there's still some part of me that feels like I should feel guilty. I get that Christmas and Thanksgiving are all about family, but for once, I'd like to be with a family that's actually fun to be around. Others have said I should be grateful I even have a dad, let alone one that's taking care of me. That's like saying having a dog that barks and bites you is better than being petless. I don't know. I just want a nice holiday season for once. Sounds like your dad has some serious control issues, which is obviously going to come into play when you tell him you don't want to come over for holidays. That's something that he needs to work on. You've told him the way it is, and he's just going to have to deal with that. You're entitled to spend your Christmas or Thanksgiving however you want. You're a grown adult. If you want to spend it with your girlfriend's family, you're entitled to do that. And if the environment is as toxic as you say, I don't think anyone could really blame you. Entitled customer uses my dead uncle to try and bargain with me. This happened a couple weeks ago, but I'm still ticked off when I think about it. My place of work is a family business. My grandfather founded our store. My dad and mom bought it from him, and I'm now working the desk, along with some of my siblings. My mom and dad didn't originally plan to be sole owners, however. My uncle was also very involved with the business and wanted to go in on it with them. Unfortunately, about 6 months before the deal was supposed to happen, he unexpectedly suffered a stroke and died while walking his dogs. It was so fast, I never really got the chance to say goodbye. He was out less than 2 hours after he went down. He was young, too, only 42. I was wrecked emotionally for a long time after that. My parents pulled out of the deal and waited another 7 months past the original date to buy the business, both to heal further and to put things in order. My uncle knew codes to safes, passwords to accounts, all that, and when he went, he took all of that with him, so it was really difficult to track everything down. We now have a memorial photo in the store, with his death date and a little message about what he's done for the store. Every so often, a customer who met him once will give us their condolences. While I love my uncle and enjoy the memorial picture, sometimes it really hurts to have someone who barely knew him try to comfort you while you're just trying to work. However, this customer took it a step too far. As soon as she came in, she went to our higher end product and began to complain that everything was too pricey, that our prices used to be lower. They weren't. All before spotting the memorial photo. She looks towards me and says, "Oh, Uncle used to bargain with me all the time. It's such a shame." Because I'm stupid and try to give people the benefit of the doubt, I assume she's just giving a weird kind of condolence. I don't like talking about him in front of strangers, so I switch topics and and direct her towards our lower end goods that are more in her price range. She gives me a weird look and continues to bemoan our prices and how Uncle would always make them lower for her. Then, out of nowhere, as I'm talking about our mid-range product, she blurts out, "Do you even care?" I turn totally stone-faced, and as calmly as I can, I say, "Of course I do. But unfortunately, I can't do anything about it. I don't and cannot negotiate with you." I like to say that I blew up and threw her out of the store, but in the end, she settled on 2 lower-end products and I processed her order as quickly as I could to get her out of my face. One thing I did do was simply not inform her on a sale we're having on one of her items. Oops, we'll just call that the $50 dead uncle fee. I get why that would make you uncomfortable. Customers coming in and bringing up your dead uncle when you were much closer to him than they were. But just know it's coming from a good place. Most of them just want to offer their condolences and let you know that they liked him. This lady was clearly trying to do something else. To be honest, he probably never even gave her the discounts she's talking about. She's probably just making this up, thinking that you'll just go along with it because you both liked him and had a nice conversation about him or something like that. Not that she even bothered to start the conversation off in a nice way. She came in with an attitude from the get-go. That's great that my uncle decided to give you that discount, but based on our interaction, I'm deciding that we're going to be charging you a little extra from now on. My significant other is jealous of my coworker because I gave them a cookie. So my significant other brought me 2 cookies from one of my favorite local bakeries while I was at work. I ate one and then one of my female coworkers, who I consider a friend, came by the firearms counter I run at work. After we said hi, I asked my usual, "How are you?" and she said her period was very painful. I gave her a chunk of the second cookie because I felt bad, and I said I hope she would feel a little better after. My significant other says this was extending comfort only intended between us and made her very uncomfortable. I agreed that if it made her uncomfortable, I wouldn't do it again, but I kinda think she's overreacting. Am I the jerk? Your significant other sounds like just a little bit of a jealous person, I think. Like, heck, it was just a cookie. Who really cares? And it doesn't even sound like you gave her the whole thing. You said you gave her a chunk of the cookie. Your significant other is really gonna be weighing that against your relationship. What were the intentions behind that little piece of cookie? It was to make her feel better. The coworker's having a bad day, and he just wanted to offer her comfort. Should he just treat all women like trash that aren't you? Sorry. It doesn't work that way. He still is allowed to be a decent human being to other people. Entitled mother thinks her kid's teacher is jealous of her because boy said she looked hot and sent her to the office. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. Long story, but here's our cast. Entitled mother, secretary, and me. I'm the principal of the only Catholic high school in a small town. As is the case with most Catholic high schools, mine has a uniform for students. Once a month, usually the last Friday, we allow students to wear their own clothes. However, there is a dress code in place for those days that applies to all students, i.e. no tank tops, low neck tops, sleeveless tops, and things like that. I'm not here to get into a debate about it, that's just the way it is. So one recent Friday, a young girl was sent to the office by her female teacher because of her top, which would be best described as a deep scoop neck t-shirt. The girl is 15 and well developed. The secretary referred her to me, and I glanced at her and quietly asked her if she could put on a sweater or something. She agreed, and that was that. Or so I thought. The following Monday morning, a little after 9 a.m., I heard a commotion in the office outside my door. This isn't unusual as the office is pretty busy and many staff, students, visitors, and parents are in and out all day and can get a little loud when they chat. I wasn't paying attention to what was going on until I heard my secretary say, "Well, I'll have to check with Mr. Original Poster and see if he's available." She is a U-shaped desk, so it takes a moment or two to get around it to approach my door. Before she could get around the desk, Entitled Mother rushed past her into my office.
"I want her down here so I can talk to all 3 of you,"
she yelled back at the secretary. Excuse me, what?" She cut me off.
"I need to talk with you right now about what happened with my daughter."
Now, bear in mind at this point, I didn't know A, who she was, B, who her daughter was, or C, what she was talking about. "I'm sorry, Mr. Original Poster. She came in before I could stop her."
"Get that teacher right now. I want all 3 of you here."
Excuse me, I'm in the middle of something right now.
I need to talk to you right now.
You can't be in here.
I'm not happy about what happened.
And I'm not able to see you right now. I'm in the middle of preparing for a staff meeting.
This is more important than that. I left you a message Friday and you didn't return my call. You're completely unprofessional.
The message had never been given to me as we had a supply secretary answering phones in the office that Friday morning. She had written the message down on paper instead of connecting the parent to my voicemail, then forgot to give it to me. That said, I still didn't know who she was or what she was talking about. Aside from being disoriented, I was now growing annoyed. I didn't pass the message on to Mr. Original Poster. We were very busy on Friday.
I don't care. I want to talk to you right now.
And you don't have an appointment. If you want to make an appointment, go back out and make one. You can't just barge into my office and demand to see me.
I didn't.
You're standing right there.
I tried to call Friday and you ignored me.
I did not get your message. I'm sorry, but I'm busy now, and I don't have time to meet with you. You'll have to make an appointment.
I'm an upset parent, and it's your job to talk to me. I have rights. I pay your salary. Are you gonna talk to me?
No, I'm busy, and you don't have an appointment. If you want to meet with me, you'll have to make an appointment.
I can't believe this. This is more important than your stupid meeting. I'm upset, and I need to discuss this with you and that teacher.
Like I was gonna drag that teacher out of a class. Nope. No, I'm not available. You can make an appointment for later today or tomorrow.
I'm not available later. It has to be now.
I'm not available now. Make an appointment.
Ugh.
She walked out and left the building. The next day, I got a call from my superintendent, who's a good buddy of mine. According to her, she politely asked the secretary to see me. The secretary invited her in. I grew hostile and abusive. She felt threatened and left in fear. She also complained that I had looked at her daughter in a way that made her feel uncomfortable. She also said she didn't see what was wrong with the top and mentioned that her daughter is a model, as if that mattered. She said some boys had told her daughter that she looked hot, which the teacher overheard and only sent her to the office because she was jealous. She said she and her daughter were fine with the boys leering at the daughter, and that I and the teachers have no business checking the students out and saying anything about their clothes. No way I'm the jerk here, right? This is just your typical entitled mother. My guess is that's how she got by when she was her daughter's age, so she thinks it's perfectly fine for her. At the end of the day, the rules are the rules, and you're gonna have to kind of expect that pushback when you're going to a Catholic school. They're not gonna tolerate that kind of thing. I think it's safe to say that most public schools would not allow that. A Catholic school? Heck no. I get you're proud of your appearance or whatever you want to call it, but there's a time and a place for that. The classroom is not one of those places. Everybody close to me keeps telling me that I should take back my cheating wife. I met my wife 10 years ago. We both were in college, dated for 3 years, and married for 7. She's beautiful and amazing, and everyone in my family loves her. 4 months ago, I found out my wife was having an affair with a mutual friend of ours. It was a 1.5-month affair. She was acting very shady at that time. She would ignore my messages, turn me down every time I tried to initiate sex. I thought something was wrong. I did some snooping, but found nothing. Eventually, I hired a PI. Within 1 week, I got proof. She was having an affair with our mutual friend. I immediately confronted her. She confessed to the affair, immediately started crying, begging, basically all classic cheater moves when they're caught. I asked her for all the details with a detailed timeline. That night, she gave me basically everything. She was using another phone for having the affair. She told me she had sex with him only 4 times, and the rest of the time they were just hanging out and having fun. 3 days later, more crying and talking crap about herself, she told me she had deleted all contact with him and she would do whatever it took to make our marriage work. She suggested marriage counseling. I denied and told her to leave me alone. I was hurt, betrayed, and humiliated. She moved out to her parents' place. She started texting me every hour how much she loves me and how she regrets this, and how she'll do anything to save our marriage. After completely ignoring her for 2 days, I texted her that we're getting a divorce. She freaked out and started having an emotional breakdown. My phone started blowing up with her parents, sister, friends, telling me not to end the marriage, and at least to give her another chance. Later that day, she made a long Facebook post explaining how she screwed up and how she's destroying her marriage, basically admitting her affair publicly. but I was rock solid on my decision. She even insisted to have a lie detector test to clear any remaining doubts that I had. I asked her for some time alone to process all this. We've been living separate since. This was all 4 months ago. Last week, I asked her for a divorce, and she started crying and begging for another chance. After that, she visited my parents and asked them to convince me not to divorce her. Last night, my parents and her parents tried to convince me to work things out, and after she made her Facebook post, almost all of our mutual friends were telling me how brave she was to admit to her affair, and that she must love me and I should at least give her a chance. I'm on the edge of having a breakdown. She's truly remorseful and regrets this, I can assure you. I do love her, and her cheating on me hurts the most. I don't know what to do. Anyone else who has reconciled? How are things going for you? It's a really tough spot to be in. She really does sound remorseful for her actions, and I'm sure she is very sorry, and honestly does mean that she won't ever do it again. Unfortunately, that's not really the problem here. The problem is a level of trust has been broken that you can't easily get back. As much as our original poster may want to believe his wife that this is never going to happen again, it's always going to be there in the back of his mind, and that's something that he has to live with. He'll be the one suffering throughout the rest of the relationship, not her. On the other side of the coin though, what are you supposed to do when you've made a mistake and you really are sorry and would do anything to make it better? Sometimes there's nothing you can do, and that can be the hardest thing to accept. Kevin assumes every woman in construction is a receptionist. Hint, we're not. This happened about 20 years ago. Equal opportunity was becoming a thing in the workplace, but in construction, things have a habit of not quite keeping pace. I've been working for a manufacturing company in construction for several years. As the only woman in the sales area, I was given the task of manning the phones as well as operating in support. Men generally would accept me putting them on hold for someone else in technical, while the guys tended to have to work harder to put them on hold. It was just one of those things, but it was logical. One day, a call came in. Good morning, how can we help you today?
Yes, I'd like to speak to one of the guys, please. I have a question.
Oh, that's no problem. If you let me know what you need, I'd be happy to help you out.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm happy to wait for one of the guys.
Unfortunately, all the guys are busy on other calls, but I can help you now. I work in the sales section here as well. I'm looking at my coworker now who has turned to look at me. He knows that voice.
That's fine. I'm happy to wait. I prefer to speak to one of the guys.
My coworker and I are looking at each other. We know what's going to happen next. No problem, let me put you through. I put this guy on transfer, not breaking eye contact with my colleague. He's looking right back as he reaches out a hand and picks up the receiver.
Good morning, how can we help you today?
I can't hear the conversation, but there's silence as Kevin talks. My colleague keeps his eyes on me as he listens. Finally, he speaks.
You need to speak to the chemical specialist. Let me put you through.
A smile is starting to quirk my lips. As a person who has a lifelong love of science and chemistry, I naturally fell into specializing in what chemical products we sold. Over time, I ended up being the go-to for anything to do with technical queries. My colleague is still looking at me as he transfers the call. We're together in this golden moment. I reach out and I pick up the call and bring the receiver up. Good morning, how can I help you? There's a long, pregnant silence on the line. Finally, Kevin speaks.
Hello, I was being put through to your chemical specialist.
This is better than that time my bestie made me cookies and forgot to tell me they were augmented. My colleague and I are grinning like fools. Maybe the phone is augmented. That's me. After a silence while Kevin digested this horrifying news, to his credit, he managed to successfully process that I might be able to help him. The discussion went on normally from there, and I was able to sort out his problem immediately. He even said thanks before he hung up. No, thank you, Kevin. You should never assume someone doesn't know something based on their gender or something so stereotypical as that. Believe it or not, things like gender or race have no effect over what a person may or may not know. This was apparently 20 years ago, so, you want to kind of claim different times, but heck, it wasn't that different. This shouldn't be the kind of thing that's happening. She said she's able to help you. Give her a chance at least. Pro tip, if you're gonna do a fundraiser, you gotta let people know it's a fundraiser. Back in high school, I had a summer job working for a local museum's garden project. Since we worked for a museum, we had almost no funding. The head of our project came up with a fantastic idea for funding. We would partner with a local ice cream shop for the day. We would be employees for a few hours and all tips would go to our funding. However, since we would only be there a few hours, we didn't get any training, and no one thought to give us a script to explain the fundraiser, or even tell anyone a fundraiser was happening. So it was no surprise when a nice old man saw me struggling to make his order and commented, "Is it your first day here?" "No," I laughed. "I don't even work here." "What?" he asked, confused. I explained about the fundraiser and pointed to my hat with the garden's logo on it, and explained that all tips we earned over the next 2 hours would go towards buying manure and seeds for the garden. "We're serving sweets so we can buy something stinky," I said with a laugh. Everyone in line that heard my explanation laughed, and the mood in the shop instantly changed. Instead of people being annoyed at how slow we all were at getting their ice cream, they started chatting with us about what our actual jobs were and what we wanted to do after high school. Everyone from the garden started having fun with it. One kid went as far as offering to let a little kid sniff his hands to prove he didn't have any manure on them. By the end of our time, we'd earned almost $200 in tips. We were able to buy our seeds, manure, and even had some extra money to buy chickens and build them a coop. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a fundraiser, a lot of the time it's to raise awareness. You have to make people aware of what's going on and that you need money to do it. I'm not surprised that as soon as you brought it to everyone's attention that the mood changed and people got a lot more generous. Especially if it's something more small and local like that. People don't mind chipping in a few extra bucks to help out. I refuse to let my fiance's family stay in my house. My fiance and I live together near the ocean with many tourist attractions. My family from all over the world regularly visit and stay with us. In return, we stay with them when we visit their cities for various reasons, work or vacation, things like that. Last year, I had to travel to the city where her brother lives, and she decided to come visit him and his family. She asked if we could stay with them, and he declined, because he's still protective of his family due to the world event. I understood at first and we stayed at a hotel, but later got annoyed because they had no problem going to dinner and out with us in public. Earlier this year, I had to go back to his city and again she came along to visit them. He again declined her request to stay at their house, so we stayed at a hotel. I understand some people just don't like having overnight guests. The visit went smoothly and everyone had a good time. Last week, he called to ask if he and his family could stay at our place when they came here in a couple of weeks for their vacation. I got really annoyed at this because he didn't let us stay at his house, but wants to stay at ours? I told my fiance they can stay at a hotel, but she argued that they would need 3 rooms for 7 days due to their family's size. She then pointed out we always let my family stay with us, at which point I countered that's because we're always invited to stay with my family whenever we visit their cities. She argued families do things for each other without expecting anything in return. We went back and forth until bed last night. I'm sitting here having coffee while she's sleeping, and I'm unsure if I'm wrong. On one hand, I know I can be stubborn and petty. On the other hand, he doesn't invite us to stay with him while expecting us to house him and his family. What do you guys think? Am I the jerk? So this is one of those eye for an eye situations, and an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Just because he doesn't let you stay there doesn't mean you not letting him stay with you is okay. You are still kind of being a jerk about it. But that being said, I totally understand where you're coming from, especially if they've got a whole bunch of kids with them. That's gonna take up a lot of space and things are gonna get pretty rowdy in your house. It sounded like when you were visiting, it was just the 2 of you. So I would think if they had the room to house that many children, they could find space for a couple more adults. Anyway, long story short, you are being the jerk, but I understand why. Rude girl in my class asks if I'm deaf, not knowing that I actually am. I, 18-year-old female, have moderate hearing loss. I lost hearing over the years with many ear-related incidents. I wear hearing aids to hear people talk sometimes, but I mainly use them at school. When I start a school year, I tell the teacher that I wear hearing aids and they normally put me next to their desks so I can hear them without the use of my hearing aids. In one of my classes, I have a girl, Lily. Lily likes to yell at people to get them to come to her instead of getting up to talk to them. No matter who tells her to stop, she won't. The teacher stopped trying to get her to stop a long time ago. In this class, we have to take notes. Lily missed notes day and the teacher told her to find someone with notes. No one near her wanted to give her the notes, so she chose me. I was on the opposite side of the room and she began yelling at me. She's done this all year, and it was annoying. I didn't look at her. I just kept working on other schoolwork. I wasn't going to give her special treatment just because she was lazy. She kept getting louder and more frustrated that I wasn't going to her. She yelled at me for 10 minutes before she stood up and walked over to me. She was very mad at me and kept saying that it was stupid that I didn't go to her and that she shouldn't have to stand up. She very loudly asked, "What are you, deaf?" The entire class was watching us. I have no idea where the teacher was. I slowly turned to her before taking out the case that has my hearing aids in it and made a show of putting them in. I then very loudly asked her, "What?" She got very red in the face and then turned around and walked back to her seat. No one in that class knew I wore hearing aids because my hair covers them. My sister said it was mean of me to do that to her because she didn't know, and I wasn't wearing my hearing aids and I could hear her because she was very loud. So am I the jerk? No way, you're not a jerk for something like this. She was being kind of obnoxious about everything, saying things like, "Why do I have to get up?" Well, why should you get up to bring her what she wants? What makes her so entitled? And yelling at people across the room to do stuff for her? No, she needed to be brought down a peg or two. You did nothing wrong here. I told my sister she had to leave after she insulted my daughters. I'm a 42-year-old male. My sister is 44 and was staying with me and my daughters who are 18 and 16. She'd taken 2 weeks off from work to give herself a summer vacation, and she spent 1 week on a beach and then asked if she could spend the next week with us. I thought it sounded awesome, so I agreed. After about 3 days, my sister, after dinner, pulls me aside and asks if we can talk privately. In my mind, I'm thinking she's gonna tell me something serious, like she's broke or she's unemployed, something like that. We go into the backyard and she says, "You really need to get a handle on how fat the girls are." One thing about my sister is she does not sugarcoat. She just calls it exactly how she sees it. I told her she can cool it on calling them fat. She gets irritated and goes off. Tells me they're lazy, they're doing nothing all day except for lying in bed or sitting on the couch. She said she feared that Dana, the 18-year-old, was going to break her chair, which I took as a hyperbole, but my sister goes, "If you wake up, you'll notice that Dana's butt has its own zip code." She kept going and told me that my other daughter, Allie, the 16-year-old, might be wider than she is tall. And my sister pointed out that on more than one occasion she's seen Allie's belly pop out of her shirt. She told me that where I messed up after my wife died 14 years ago was I subconsciously overindulged them with food. She decided to put me on the spot and ask me how much they weigh. I told her that when Dana, who's 5'8", was at the doctor's, she was in the 240s, and this was in May. Allie, who's 5'5", is in the upper 220s, and she saw her doctor in March. My sister again told me to do something about my obese, lazy daughters. I told her to drop it. My sister goes, "There's no way Dana doesn't come home next summer after freshman year weighing less than 300 pounds. I told my sister to pack her stuff and find a hotel. She said I was blind to the issues, but did leave. Am I the jerk? Not at all. You don't need that kind of toxicity coming into your home. It's one thing if she's genuinely concerned about the girl's health or something like that, but that's not what this sounds like. This sounds like it's coming from a very vain place. It's not being said with the girl's best interests at heart, at all. At least she had the decency to not say it in front of them, I guess. Male Karen thinks I'm a thief because I have no work uniform, but I'm the manager. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. A little backstory. I was once a male volleyball player for a small high school in Florida a couple years ago, and recently had a situation that reminded me of this story. Now, while I was in high school, I worked at a part-time job at a small sports store. It wasn't part of a chain or anything, but more of a local shop that you could go and hang out at and buy equipment. Me and my friends first came across this place after we joined the volleyball team freshman year. Now, many people may not know about men's volleyball because it's not something you see often, but where I live in Florida, it's a huge deal. And this is the reason I got manager, because not only was I a hard and trusty worker, as the owner put it, but also a volleyball player like he was when he was in high school. I worked at this store up till my senior year, so a lot of people knew me and trusted me to get the equipment they needed. I was manager, so I marked what people requested and asked the owner to make an order. One day, a man and his son, who I would say was about 13, walked in and asked where the football gear was. At first, I looked at the dad with a "are you sure?" expression because his son looked really small and scrawny. Not what you would expect a football playing kid to look like. But me being the guy I am, assumed the kid was just starting out. So I stood up and pointed to the second aisle in the shop. When I did, this kid looked scared out of his mind. Now, I'm a big guy with a height of 6 feet, and I practice a lot, so I have a bit of muscle. However, I have social anxiety outside of my circle of friends and the usual customers that come to the shop, so I got nervous and sat down. This relieved the kid and made me feel better. After a couple minutes of sitting on my phone, I decided to go to the back real quick to take stock and to fill up some of the shelves with our latest equipment of products. Note, our storage is in plain view of the counter, as to assure us no one goes back there without our knowledge. While I was doing this, I hear shouting come from the front of the store and someone was going off about, "There's some kids stealing equipment, and where are the employees?" When I come out to see what the problem is, I see the dad giving me a death glare. He then walked up to me and got in my face to chew me out, asking what I was doing back there, and that "you should be in the front like all the other customers." But when I tried to get my word in the conversation, he would just keep interrupting, saying that he would tell the manager what I was doing and that I was trying to steal equipment for my own selfish self. This is where my social anxiety kicks in, and I start tearing up a bit. Now, a lot of people would say you're the manager, just kick him out. But when a random guy is shouting at you and you have social anxiety, it's kind of hard. Finally, the owner comes out of his office to see what the problem is, and the dad says, "This kid is stealing equipment from you and your employees are nowhere to be seen." I look at the owner with tears in my eyes, and the owner looks at the dad and says,
Sir, this young man does in fact work here.
"He has no uniform on."
Sir, we don't wear uniforms.
"That's ridiculous. All stores have uniforms."
No, it's not, sir. And no, they don't. Now, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
"Why? I've done nothing wrong."
You've shouted at my employee and caused a huge scene. Now, please leave.
The dad then grabbed his son and stomped out in anger, and that was the last I saw of him. Now that I look back, I should have kicked him out, but back then I was scared and a different person than I am now. The owner was always ready to take care of jerks though. I mean, at least the guy in this story had a good intention at heart, and I could understand why maybe he would think that you were stealing something. You're just some young guy with no uniform who's just kind of going in the back area and doing his own thing. At the same time, he did walk in and see you in the front area and asked you where stuff was. Kinda seemed like he already assumed you were an employee, so I don't really know what's going on there. But I totally feel for you on the social anxiety thing. There are situations where you're put on the spot like that and your mind just kind of shuts down. It's not something that's controllable. I am glad to hear it's better for you now. A lot of people who have never had to deal with that level of social anxiety don't understand what it's like to be in a situation like that for someone like you. That it can be completely overwhelming in the moment. Soldier cuts off my uncle's hand and leaves him for dead, so my uncle gets revenge with one hand. I've been really wanting to post this, but unfortunately, I myself have never exacted revenge. At least nothing worth posting, but this I think may be worth sharing. Warning, this contains a story about a Holocaust survivor. This happened to my dad's great-granduncle. I'll just call him Uncle. I never knew him. He died in 1998 when I was about 5 years old. My dad didn't know him very well either. He was kind of reclusive. Uncle was a Holocaust survivor, but he never really talked about it. He never gave a testimony, never collected reparations, never went back to his homeland of Ukraine, never sought out if his friends or family survived. He just moved to the US, met up with the family he had there, and started over. Got married, had kids, all the while never saying much other than "I was there." The only reason we know any details about this is because one night one of his sons got him drunk and he spilled the whole terrible story. Later, the son found out that the mother knew a fair amount too. She had fled her native land, which I believe was Czechoslovakia, just as it was being invaded, so she understood to an extent. But after that, he refused to say anything more. The son has been spending the past few years trying to find out more from records and such. I don't know too many details, unfortunately. I only met the son once and I can't even remember his name at all. Uncle was at a concentration camp. Not sure which, but I think the son said it was Dachau, but don't quote me on that. He was in his late 20s. Not more than a day after he got off the train, an officer pulled him aside from the working line and began berating him about being lazy. He then said he needed to make an example of him so the others wouldn't slack off, so took out a cutlass and chopped off Uncle's left hand. The officer told him to get back to work and walked away laughing while Uncle bled out in the snow. The others tried to nurse him and keep him as healthy as they could, but his wounds still got infected and he was sick and slow a lot. Luckily, the others picked up his work and helped him as much as they could. Apparently, Uncle had said that he had made peace with the fact that he was going to die there and be fed to the dogs. The officer continued to harass Uncle. He looked for any excuse to beat and demean him. It's a wonder he didn't just shoot him. He took away his food, his shoes, had dogs attack him, made him do tasks that required 2 hands and things like that. When the camp was liberated, Uncle went up to a soldier and asked if they had captured any officers. He said they did. He asked if they caught the officer that had tormented him, which he said while he showed the soldier his stump wrapped in soiled bandages. The soldier brought the officer to him handcuffed and had him on his knees. Uncle then, with the soldiers around him, proceeded to choke out the officer with his remaining hand. Evidently, it took quite a while, and apparently one of the soldiers offered Uncle their gun, but he stuck with slowly but surely choking the life out of the man that took his hand and tormented him and countless others. Afterwards, Uncle got a wooden hand, moved to America, got married and had kids. All the while, whenever someone saw his tattoo or asked him about the war or the camps, he would just show them his wooden hand and say, "I was there, I don't want to go back." I can't imagine the kind of PSD he must have had from that experience. I can't imagine the pain and trauma it caused him. I doubt he ever got any real help either. It seems that he just took it all to the grave. But things like that shouldn't be forgotten, no matter how painful. They should be remembered, so we as people never allow something like that to happen again. I hope he was at least at peace with himself, and at least enjoyed the life he made after that ordeal. Wow, wasn't expecting to get this heavy with it. We all know that there were a lot of atrocities that took place during the Holocaust. I don't think we all need to really sit here and talk about that. But what I will say is that despite everything that your uncle went through, he's one of the lucky ones. He got out alive. There's so many that didn't have that opportunity. He got to go on with his life and get married and have kids and be happy. I'm sure in some way that yes, he did find his peace at least. Karen told my manager that my anxiety was an excuse to be rude to her. This happened the other day at work. Apparently, people just want to make us retail workers cry this week. The next day, a lady got rough with one of my coworkers too. Something in the air, I guess. But anyway, let's talk about the Karen we're here to talk about. I work part-time at a local chain pet store, mostly with the fish section, but I float around the store most slow days. Friday afternoon, pretty peaceful day, nothing out of the ordinary really. Then came in a middle-aged couple with a young toddler into the fish section where I was doing my daily cleaning routine on the aisles. Folks walked by, asked them how they were doing, and said if they need any help to just ask. You know, normal retail sales intro. Seemed pleasant enough. It got worse when they actually needed help though. The Karen did indeed need some help getting some fish. Quite a few actually, so it took a little bit of time to catch them all. Throughout this time catching and placing the fish in the temporary container to move them to the bagged table, the toddler was extremely nosy and had no sense of personal space whatsoever. I have anxiety around kids in general. I don't like to be touched, and I don't really have the programs in my brain to deal with them for long periods of time. At first, I nervously laughed and told the kid to watch out that I didn't accidentally knock him with an elbow or drop water on his head. Reasonable request. Kid kept on, then started asking the same questions over and over and over again. Kept wanting me to get other fish that his parents didn't ask for. At one point I said, "You gotta ask your parents about those," or jokingly asked if he was going to pay for them. The kid then started to climb on my ladder away from me, which he shouldn't have been doing, but by all means, get out of my space. Like, I thought I was doing pretty well seeing as I was interacting with this kid and not going completely off my rocker. He even started to touch my shoulders and arms, trying to get me to look at the fish he wanted but wasn't getting, which is a big trigger for me. I hate being touched by strangers. Karen was getting a little irritated that I wasn't acting like a normal woman just drooling all over this child, that she probably thought was being cute. Note that they've only told the kid to get out of my face and space once in this entire 5 to 10 minute interaction, despite my obvious discomfort. Last straw was when the dad, who was cool by the way, took the kid over to another aisle, thank God. But just as soon as he left, he came running back with a net and tried to get in between my legs to try and catch his own fish. He'd even taken the wrapper off it, like he meant business. The dad was running after him, and Karen thought it was cute. I, however, was disassociating already from the stress, trying not to get overwhelmed, and suddenly panicked when he went straight for the open hatch. The lift hatch on this one in question is temperamental and could have easily slammed down on his fingers and hurt him. Softly, in a panicked voice, "Please don't, oh please don't," after which Karen finally grabbed the kid's arm and held him only a short distance away, still in my space, but restrained, I guess. Karen then proceeded to get huffy with me and said, "You don't have kids, do you? You really need to work on your patience with kids." At this point, neither parent had done much to control the kid and hadn't said any kind of negative connotation words like no or even the kid's name. They had just been letting him all up in my space. Being really out of whack now with my anxiety in full gear, I didn't even think about it and replied back, "No ma'am, I don't. I don't really plan on it either since my anxiety makes it kinda difficult to handle kids for long periods of time." Oh, this ticked her off apparently. At this point, I wasn't mentally present. I was just trying to get these people out of my space and not lose my mind. They didn't say a word after this. I handed them their fish bags and told them to have a good day and that there's a 30-day guarantee on the fish. I was just thankful it was over. I've had experiences like this before and have learned to control the anxiety much better working in retail for 2 years. So here I thought it was over and I could relax again. I didn't notice any changes in them, so I wasn't expecting anything to come about after the whole ordeal. Went back to normal, did some breathing exercises to calm my nerves and get centered on reality again. Oh, how I was wrong. At checkout, the lady asked my coworker if she could speak to a manager. Classic Karen behavior. I was far enough away that I didn't hear the interaction, but according to my least favorite manager, the lady went off about how I was rude to her kid. Said I told her I was never having kids ever, and that my anxiety was an excuse to be a jerk to her 3-year-old son, who just didn't know any better. Meanwhile, my coworker said the kid in question had ran over to another customer's dog while Karen was going off and ignoring her precious spawn, which is extremely dangerous, as we have dogs that can be nervous that are going to training classes around the time in question. The second that dog bit the kid, it would have been put down and Karen would have sued. My coworker said the customer with the dog looked at Karen in a "Can you please come get your kid" expression, but didn't want to intervene Karen mid-Karening to avoid her wrath. Meanwhile, I'm back in my happy place talking to the fish and OCD organizing to get my senses back to normal, unaware that I was about to have a meltdown in a minute or two. So least favorite manager comes over and asks me if he can have a quick chat. I said sure and asked what was up. He normally likes to micromanage, so I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary. He then proceeds to lay it on me that I had a complaint that I was rude, and the lies that the lady had spat about me. Another cool manager walks by and asks what's up. Least favorite manager relays the same info to him. I suddenly lose my cool. I go off and explain that no, I wasn't rude, that the kid had hit every trigger button I had and barely managed to keep calm as it is. I was quietly raging that I just hate kids and I hate parents and everything, and all hell broke loose. I lost it. Everything I had bottled up from the interaction with Karen blew up. Looked at my arm mid-rage and it was shaking like crazy, and I could feel feel tears coming on. Anxiety attack. A bad one. I told them to hold that thought, that I was having an attack and had to go to the back for a bit. Proceeded to lay in the floor of the break room in fetal position for about 20 minutes after taking my real deal chill pills in hopes I could stave it off. Too late though. I couldn't work for another hour while waiting on it to pass. My whole body was flushed. Typical anxiety attack symptoms for me. Coworkers came to check on me. Cool manager asked if I was alright. Coworker that had watched the whole thing took pity on me and came back to bring me a guinea pig as emotional support. I finally calmed down enough to work the last hour. But sure, I totally faked an anxiety attack to be a jerk to a 3-year-old. I mean, I'm not a fan of kids, but I'm not going to be mean to them for no reason. Just learn to control your kids, folks. Good kids I can deal with easily. Bad or no boundary kids set me off. So now I'm getting to where I don't want to help people with kids anymore in fear that they'll try and get me fired over the fact that I interact with kids a little differently than some people. I just talk to them like they're little adults most of the time. If that offends people, I don't think I'm the problem here, jerk. No, you're definitely not in the wrong here. There are boundary issues, and parents are responsible for controlling their kids. Everyone has a limit as to what they can tolerate. Kids tend to push those buttons. With this kid in particular, he's climbing up the ladder behind you and pulling on you and stuff. The whole situation just sounds potentially dangerous. I don't know why you have to be the one to chime in and say, hey, control your kid. You'd think it would be common sense. And the fact that other customers in the store are continuing to have interactions like this with this woman while she's complaining about you should kind of show the manager what's really going on here. It just kind of sucks that Karen ended up going to the manager that you didn't get along with. Maybe if it was any of the other ones, this whole situation would have been approached a little differently and you wouldn't have ended up breaking down. But hey, at least you had your support guinea pig. That's a true friend right there to bring you that. I was almost accused of stealing from the store that I work at. This is a rather funny story and doesn't have any spicy things, and it also doesn't escalate like other stories do. But here we go. So I go to university and work as a game master in escape room as a side gig. It's the best freaking job I ever had, though it can be stressing if we're fully booked. We're usually working alone as we only have 2 rooms and one game master can do 2 rooms at once. A week before the incident happened, I bought something to replace a part that was destroyed by one of our groups, and I paid with my own money. A few days later, I wasn't scheduled but was nearby and decided to go into our office and take my money out of the cash register and also bring the replacement part I bought. Now comes the part you're here for. We're 8 people on our team. I've met 6 of them and I'm the 7th. Usually we see each other when one person's shift ends and another one's begins. Also, we all see each other once a month in a team meeting where we discuss important things. We don't have to attend those meetings, but we get free food if we do. However, I still haven't seen one of my 7 coworkers, and he hasn't seen me either. He tends to work very rarely and doesn't have time for team meetings. We'll call him D. So I'm just walking into the office and no one is there. I assumed that the game master was just busy cleaning up one of our rooms. Have in mind, I had no idea which one of us had a shift that day. I sit down, open the cash register, and begin to take the money out. That's the moment where D stepped into the office and we both looked at each other extremely confused, since we had no idea who the other one was and why the other one was in the office. We both could have been random dudes in the office. I was in a much worse position as I was an unknown person taking money out of the cash register. D goes,
Who are you and what are you doing?
"Who are you?"
I'm the game master. My name isn't relevant to you.
"Yes, it is. I'm the game master too." Followed by 10 seconds of silence. Imagine the Spider-Man meme with the 2 Spider-Men looking at each other. That was us. I say to him, "I'm original poster."
I don't know who that is.
"I think we're coworkers. I bought this replacement part for one of our rooms and came by to get my money back." When he realized I know what I'm talking about, he also realized that I wasn't a robber and calmed down. He let me take my money and I drove off. A couple of weeks later, we met again at one of our team meetings and had a great laugh about it. I think we've all had moments like this. I've absolutely been new at a job and addressed someone who worked there as a customer or something like that because I just don't know who they are. It's a totally understandable situation. And yeah, it's a little awkward when you guys meet when you're taking cash out of the register and you're not supposed to be there. But hey, at least you sorted it all out and there was no real drama or issues involved. could have gone down a whole lot worse if this guy was a lot more aggressive or something like that. Thankfully, rational heads seemed to intervene on this one, and there was no violence or anything that ensued. I don't know why you didn't just wait until your next shift to get it, but hey, maybe you needed the money right then and there. I don't know.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.